Chapter 339. How dare you! Right after Wu Qi brought Yan Qijuan and Zhao Kuo up into the sky, a beautiful lady among the 8 heaven immortals who came chasing after them had already let out a loud cry. With a blink of her body, she arrived behind Wu Qi. With just a thought, a heaven immortal could teleport to another place with his divine will. His speed was so fast that it was simply indescribable. Even if 10 peak stage nascent divinity cultivators tied together, their teleportation speed could not catch up with a heaven immortal. The lady looked down at the dilapidated White Frost City, where dark smoke billowed out from every corner of the city, and sensed the wisp of energy left behind by the several thousand Bai clan members before their tragic deaths. Her beautiful eyes were filled with blood, and her eyeballs nearly popped out from their sockets. With a teleportation, she arrived behind Wu Qi. Without saying a word, she stretched out her hand and grabbed towards Wu Qi. How dare you destroy the 10,000 years of foundation of Bai clan? This lady immortal was the patriarch of Bai clan, Bai Qingshuang, who successfully transcended her thunder tribulation 3,000 years ago and became a heaven immortal. Currently, all the members of Bai clan were her descendants. Witnessing several thousand of her descendants being slaughtered like chickens, Bai Qingshuang felt a heartache that made her heart, liver, and lungs tremble. With another teleportation, she arrived behind Wu Qi. Her 5 fingers shone with a golden gleam as she cast a restrictive spell and grabbed towards Wu Qi. Once the restrictive spell was cast, the air around Wu Qi suddenly froze. He was like a fly trapped in amber. Even with his cultivation base, he could no longer move even a little bit. The dark beam transformed from the acquired magnetic sword beam twisted and vibrated in the air, producing muffled buzzing noises, yet it just could not move an inch forward. Bai Qingshuang growled ferociously as she grabbed Wu Qi's left shoulder with one hand. Her slender and beautiful fingers clenched down hard. Even though Wu Qi's body was tempered by the dragon transformation script and a great amount of dragon blood essence, it was still crushed into pieces by this frail-looking Bai Qingshuang. The bones and meridians in Wu Qi's left shoulder exploded into a ball of meat paste, while his left arm, which was holding Yan Qijuan, was nearly severed from his body. Wu Qi let out a miserable howl. He turned his head and glared at Bai Qingshuang, then roared at the top of his voice, "Divine flame of order, explode!" In Wu Qi's spiritual ocean, on top of the phoenix fire pouch, the divine flame of order, which had grown to nearly 10 feet tall and as thick as an arm after absorbing the innate energies of 5 elements from Wu Qi's body, transformed into a clump of purple and green flame and burst out from the wound on Wu Qi's shoulder. A large amount of purple and green light shot up into the sky, followed by Qingshuang's little hand, and burned her body. Wherever the divine flame of order swept across, Bai Qingshuang's body was quickly set ablaze like a dried straw. Her fair and plump arm was burned into ashes on the spot, with golden fat dripping down ceaselessly. Bai Qingshuang shrieked in pain, "Innate divine fire, who are you?" While howling in pain, Bai Qingshuang spun and fled, returning to the side of the other 7 heaven immortals in just a blink of an eye. But as an innate divine flame, how could the divine flame of order be so easy to deal with? She fled with teleportation, but the divine flame of order followed her closely like maggots on a bone. It broke through the void and clung tightly to her body, chasing after her. The purple and green flame wrapped around Bai Qingshuang and burned her violently, turning her immortal body into ashes in just a blink of an eye. Only a golden nascent divinity managed to escape from her body in a sorry state. Not allowing her nascent divinity to escape far, the divine flame of order wheeled around and coiled around her nascent divinity. Bai Qingshuang shrieked miserably with fear, while the other 7 heaven immortals behind her also struck at the same time, unleashing all sorts of restrictive spells from Qi, forcibly locking down the void in that area. The divine flame of order trembled, then suddenly vanished into thin air. Only then did Bai Qingshuang's nascent divinity breathe out a sigh of relief, fleeing back into the arms of a handsome young man. Blood sprayed out from Wu Qi's 7 apertures. With his current cultivation base, even though he had an extraordinary treasure like the Phoenix Fire Pouch, it was still not enough for him to freely control the divine flame of order to attack the enemy. However, as he had managed to communicate with the divine flame of order telepathically, he had not hesitated to use the source energy of his nascent divinity to barely control the flame and injure Bai Qingxuang with one strike. Although he had forcibly fused 30% of his nascent divinity power into the divine flame of order to launch a desperate attack, although the 30% of his nascent divinity power was devoured and digested by the divine flame of order, 99% of the divine flame of order had burst out of his body and was no longer under Wu Qi's control. The restrictive spells unleashed by those heaven immortals had locked down the void, but they could not stop the unusual movement of the divine flame of order. After devouring 30% of the power of Wu Qi's nascent divinity and burning away Bai Qingxuang's immortal body, the divine flame of order broke through the void and disappeared. No one knew where it went. Sensing that his nascent divinity had suddenly weakened by 30%, as well as the divine flame of order that was left on the phoenix fire pouch, Wu Qi felt like weeping but had no tears. Currently, he could only control the divine flame of order, but he could not retract it. Every bit of it was wasted, and if he wanted to grow it back to its original size, he would have to spend a lot of hard work. Furiously, Wu Qi turned around and gave the 7 heaven immortals a glance, then let out a furious cry and thrust his divine will towards the chariot of 8 horses, which had transformed into a 7-colored cloud tattoo and was hidden on his wrist. Run quickly. I need to use the chariot of 8 horses' extraordinary ability to flee. As his divine will pierced into the 7-colored cloud, and as Wu Qi was about to unleash the chariot of 8 horses, a subtle message was suddenly sent out from the chariot. Perhaps it was because he had been using the chariot to flee for his life for the past few days. The connection between Wu Qi and the chariot had become even closer. As a result, another magical ability of the chariot had automatically appeared in Wu Qi's spiritual ocean. After a brief moment of pondering, Wu Qi let out a long cry. Suddenly, a faint cloud burst out from beneath his feet, while the cloth on his back was blasted apart by a 7-colored ray. Then, the image of a handsome horse appeared on Wu Qi's back. The horse had a pair of wings on its back, and its body was shrouded in clouds and mist. Like a living creature, it was galloping on Wu Qi's back, while a vast and irresistible heat flow rushed into Wu Qi's body in an instant. Wu Qi let out a very strange neigh. Suddenly, a pair of vague, fleshy wings spread out from his back, while a strange light fused with the dark beam transformed from his acquired magnetic sword beam. He cried out in surprise, and in just a blink of an eye, the dark beam expanded to a length of several miles and a width of several tens of feet. Amidst a strange buzzing noise, it sped up into the sky, coiling up Xiong Wanling and He Qianxiu, and sped off into the distance. A ripping noise rang out, as a clear cloud path was torn open in the void. Before the 7 heaven immortals could catch up with him, Wu Qi had already vanished without a trace. This was another extraordinary ability of the chariot of 8 horses. If the owner did not want to summon the entire chariot to attract too much attention, he could also summon the 8 true spirits of the Pegasi, allowing them to possess Wu Qi's body and borrow their divine power to increase the speed of Wu Qi's escape beam. With Wu Qi's current cultivation base, he could barely control 1% of the true spirit power of one of the Pegasi. Just this 1% of the true spirit power could increase the speed of Wu Qi's acquired magnetic sword beam by 10 times, almost reaching the speed of teleportation of an ordinary cultivator. A dark beam flashed, and in just a blink of an eye, Wu Qi had brought Xiong Wanling and the others to a distance of over 10,000 miles away. In just a blink of an eye, the vast energy in his body was completely drained. With a muffled groan, Wu Qi fell from the sky. Without saying a word, he swallowed a spirit pill that could help him recover his energy. After regaining a little bit of his strength, Wu Qi brought Xiong Wanling and the others into the thick Xianbing layer. They went through the 100 miles thick Xianbing layer and plunged into the deep ocean of Shui Yuan planet, which was pitch black and had never seen the sunlight since ancient times. Xiong Wanling and He Qianxiu unleashed their defensive light, protecting Wu Qi, Yan Qijuan, and Zhao Kuo. The group of 5 went straight to the bottom of the ocean and found a dense coral reef. Then, they hid in a water cave underneath the reef. Only at that moment did Wu Qi cough out a few mouthfuls of blood, falling down and sitting in the water cave in a sorry state. Without saying a word, he cast out several hundred primordial runes, completely concealing all auras around the water cave and sealing off all the auras in the surroundings. At that moment, Wu Qi finally breathed out a sigh of relief, shaking his head with a bitter smile on his face. With all the chariot of 8 horses, he was able to fly with ease and no trace. However, summoning the true spirit of a Pegasus to possess him and increase his flying speed was something that could cost him his life. Just now, when the Pegasus moved, the speed of the escape beam skyrocketed. At that moment, Wu Qi had a feeling that all the cells in his body were being squeezed by a juicer, and that his last bit of strength was almost drained. The speed of the flying was indeed extremely fast. The dark beam transformed by the escape beam could be compared to the teleportation of an ordinary nascent divinity cultivator. In just a short amount of time, they had already traveled 10,000 miles away. However, it was a little too exhausting. Even with the vast innate energies stored in all 10 of Wu Qi's innate Jin Dan, all of them were consumed in just a blink of an eye. An ordinary man could never withstand the extraordinary ability of the chariot of 8 horses. However, as a precious treasure like the chariot of 8 horses was too eye-catching, if it was not necessary, it would be better not to reveal it in front of others. Laughing bitterly, Wu Qi took out a few spirit pills that could replenish energy and heal wounds and consume them. Only then did he nod his head at Yan Qijuan, who had a worried look on his face, and said with a smile, "All right, now that we're here, even a heaven immortal will not be able to find us." "Imperial advisor he?" Qianqiu nodded his head. Flicking his sleeve, he threw Yan Xiaoqi, Ma He, and the other 2 men and 3 women out from the chariot. Upon being thrown out from the chariot, Yan Xiaoqi and her companions, whose energies were sealed by Qianqiu with a restrictive spell, immediately cried out in alarm. They gave Wu Qi and his companions a fearful look, then opened their mouths and bit down forcefully. Wu Qi snorted coldly. A dark beam flashed on his right index finger, and a primordial rune that could paralyze one's movement flickered. Immediately, the bodies of all 6 men turned stiff and could no longer move. Opening Yan Xiaoqi's mouth, Wu Qi fumbled with her teeth for a while, then suddenly pulled out one of her teeth. Casually, he crushed the tooth, and a drop of sticky liquid that came with a strong, sweet aroma slowly dripped down. The liquid fell onto the hard coral reef. Amidst a sizzling noise, a hole the size of a human head was corroded into the coral reef. Shaking his head, Wu Qi sneered and said, "Trying to commit suicide by consuming poison? Damn it. Even if your fleshly bodies are dead, your souls will still have to confess obediently. Imperial advisors, do you have a method to imprison souls and interrogate them?" Xiong Wanling shook his head and said, "Lao Tzu only knows how to kill and eat people. He doesn't know that kind of method." Qianqiu grinned coldly and said, "Interrogate souls, I do have a method. I can't guarantee that I can squeeze out everything from their souls, but I can always get 70 to 80% of the truth from them." Wu Qi smiled at Yan Xiaoqi and said, "Did you hear that? Look, why don't you tell us everything? It will save us a lot of effort, don't you think?" Faintly, Wu Qi snorted coldly and said, "You've done a good job this time. Murdering the Crown Prince of Great Yen is a crime that will get you all your clan members executed. You've even made me come all the way here from White Cloud Planet, being hunted and beaten all the way. Damn it, you've even killed 3 heaven immortals." Pointing at his left shoulder, which was slowly growing back, Wu Qi sneered and said, "Hurry up and confess, and I'll spare you a broken soul for reincarnation." Yan Xiaoqi closed her eyes, while Ma He and the others snorted coldly as well. Wu Qi was taken aback. He gave Ma He's face a look, then suddenly cried out in surprise. He walked to Ma He's side, grabbed Ma He, and tore off Ma He's pants with one claw, tearing off his underwear in 2 or 3 moves. Yan Qijuan gasped abruptly, then cried out sternly, "Ma He, who cleansed your body when you entered the palace?" Between Ma He's legs was shockingly a lump of cumbersome matter. It was completely intact and clearly belonged to a proper man. Chapter 340. Wu Qi knitted his brows into a tight frown. What was the difference between Ma He's performance and that of a death warrior? After a brief moment of silence, Wu Qi said carefully, "Don't make too much noise. There are 7 heaven immortals, and 1 heaven immortal's nascent divinity whose fleshly body was destroyed. TSK, the void around Shui Yuan planet is sealed off by them as well. Even the grand universal teleportation formation cannot enter or leave the planet. If we flee with the planetary ship, we won't be able to escape from the joint attack of 7 heaven immortals." Ma He laughed strangely, clutching his lower abdomen with both hands. While coughing out blood, he stared at Yan Qijuan and said, "Crown Prince, no matter how you torture us, we will never tell you who our master is. Even if we have to torture our souls, we firmly believe that we will never let you know anything meaningful." Zhao Ku pondered for a while, then nodded and said, "Although Lao Ai is an unbearable man, he is not that stupid. Even if he were to arrange some manpower, he would never use his own disciples. The flaws of these few people are too obvious. A eunuch who was reborn from Duanyang, a female official who lost her virginity a few years ago. Anyone would be able to link it to Lao Ai." Yan Qijuan and Zhao Ku's Chi frowned. Slowly, Wu Qi pulled out a small dagger and said in a deep voice, "Who said there is no way to investigate? There is a method in this world called torture." No matter how hard Wu Qi tried to persuade them, Yan Xiaoqi and Ma He refused to say a word. Flustered and exasperated, Yan Qijuan sprung to his feet and gave Ma He a hard kick on his lower abdomen. He had used too much strength in the kick. Ma He howled miserably as his body bounced up and down like a prawn. Blood kept spraying out of his mouth, drenching his entire body. Wu Qi threw away the horses he was carrying in his hand, then said with a cold voice, "That's right. We'll wait for these heaven immortals to get impatient, and we'll wait for them to reveal their flaws. Or, we can still wait for Great Yan's reinforcements. But it's still fun. Why don't we just extract their souls and interrogate them?" Wu Qi was stunned. Frowning, he stared at Yan Xiaoqi for a long time, then suddenly shook his hand and released Gold Horn and Silver Horn from the spirit breeding ring. Gold Horn and Silver Horn spun quickly in the narrow cave excitedly. Staring at Yan Xiaoqi and the other 5 men and women who were lying on the ground, they shouted, "Does anyone want to eat them? Io, there are both men and women. Men are chewy, women are delicate, both are delicious." Yan Qijuan was so angry that he kept stamping his feet. Lao Ai, a vile man. How dare he, how dare he, how dare he, how dare he? He bellowed. Wu Qi squatted down and slapped away Gold Horn and Silver Horn's big heads that kept approaching Yan Xiaoqi. He said in a deep voice, "Now I've changed my mind. You're just disciples of Great Sun Sect, but you're not sent here by Lao Ai, are you? Lao Ai is not that stupid. If he asks you to come forward, wouldn't he be confessing without being pressed? As long as the Crown Prince is not killed, it is very likely that we can trace it back to you. And, with the strange behavior on your bodies, it will be very easy to trace it back to Lao Ai." Yan Qijuan's face turned blue with anger. He stared fixedly at Ma He's crotch, his face alternating between blue and purple. As the Crown Prince of Great Yen, how could the chief eunuch in his mansion not cleanse his body? If this was spread out, how many people would laugh at him? There might even be some rumors spreading across Great Yen. If that happened, how could he still have a foothold in the imperial court? Even the bloodline of so many of his children and grandchildren would be questioned by others. Yan Qijuan was taken aback. He frowned and said, "Impossible. These lady officials are the elites trained by Great Yan's imperial palace, and will be assigned to the imperial clan in the future. They grew up in the imperial palace since they were young. How could they possibly do something like this?" Wu Qi did not finish his words. A girl in love in the imperial palace. Given Swan Ni's methods, it was too easy for him to control such a girl. It was very likely that Yan Xiaoqi was subdued by Lao Ai himself. The imperial palace, where these lady officials were secretly trained, was not heavily guarded. With Lao Ai's overall strength, it was not difficult for him to sneak in and out of it. Wu Qi took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "All right, they are gone." A white light flashed from the spirit breeding ring. amidst which came tens of tall and burly longbow men. Immediately, the narrow cave was filled with them. Upon hearing Wu Qi's words, Yan Xiaoqi suddenly said in a cold voice, "Now that you know it's our sect leader who asked us to do this, do you still have the courage to kill us?" Yan Qijuan was taken aback. Wu Qi gave him a look and shook his head. Yan Qijuan cried out sternly, "Their souls are also sealed with restrictive spells. Once their souls are interrogated with a soul-searching technique, their souls will vanish immediately." Everyone shut their mouths and no one made a sound. Zhao Kuo's face was deathly pale. He sat cross-legged on the ground, his eyes rolled as he stared at the top of the cave, his lips twitching. Slowly, He Qianqiu and Xiong Wanling rose to their feet, assuming a posture of fighting for their lives. If Wu Qi's talismans were broken, their whereabouts would be exposed. Under the pursuit of 7 heaven immortals, how could Wu Qi and his companions have the chance to survive? Wu Qi breathed out a long sigh, shook his head and said, "It's true. Interrogating a living soul can easily vanish your 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls. Once your souls vanish, you won't be able to reincarnate even if you want to. I'm not a cruel man. It's better for all of us if you tell us what you want. What do you think?" Zhao Kuo glared at Yan Qijuan, pointed his finger at Ma He, grinned coldly and said, "Even the eunuchs of Great Yan Dynasty have such things. Why can't the lady officials secretly trained in the imperial palace be raped by someone? I've learned something new today. Great Yan Dynasty has all kinds of strange and bizarre things." Although it was convenient to obtain a confession by interrogating a soul with a mystic technique, generally speaking, the information obtained by squeezing a soul would be incomplete. If the target also had some restrictive spells in their soul, it was more likely that they would not be able to obtain any useful information. Judging from Ma He's behavior, it seemed that he had really thrown all caution to the wind. Furthermore, the noble and solemn smile he wore just now, which made Wu Qi feel that his master behind the scene was not as simple as he looked. With a stern voice, Yan Qijuan snapped, "Why are you still wasting your breath on these traitors? Just extract their souls and interrogate them directly." Meanwhile, Wu Qi stared at Ma He and Yan Xiaoqi with a gloomy face. "Ma He," he said coldly, "I bet you have joined Great Sun sect for the sake of your broken yang. As for Yan Xiaoqi, you are a girl who grew up in the imperial palace. If there is a man who can." Casually, Wu Qi undid the restrictive spell on Ma He's body. His right palm was now less than an inch away from Ma He's forehead. The tiny ghost faces formed from the dark mist were twisting and jumping on Ma He's face, sending a cold breeze straight into Ma He's brain. Vaguely, when those ghost faces approached, Wu Qi could see a blurry and translucent figure inside Ma He's body, twisting and struggling restlessly. Yet, no matter how hard the figure tried, it just could not escape from the restraint of the body. A large amount of saliva dripped down from the corner of Yan Xiaoqi's mouth, dripping wet all over her body. Fortunately, it was a very energy-consuming task to conduct a carpet search with divine will. A few divine wills hovered around the nearby seabed for less than the time of one breath, then quickly left. Gradually, the runes on the rock wall dimmed and disappeared. The surrounding natural energies were slowly being injected into the runes, restoring their power. Pointing his finger at Yan Xiaoqi and the other 2 girls, Wu Qi said in a cold voice, "Rape them, torture them, use the cruelest methods to deal with them. I don't care about anything else, I just want their confessions." Wu Qi pressed his palm down, but Ma He smiled proudly. Wearing a sacred, solemn, and even somewhat solemn smile, he slowly closed his eyes and said, "Torture our souls? No matter how you torture us, we will never yield." Yan Qijuan and Wu Qi were stunned at the same time, then both of them cried out at the same time, "Damn it, Lao AI." Ma He clenched his teeth tightly, staring coldly at Wu Qi. With a wave of his right hand, Wu Qi gradually exercised a very cruel mystic art of extracting the souls of living beings from the technique of ghost and god taught by Princess Zhanglu. Gradually, the flesh on the fingers of his right hand shriveled and turned transparent, exposing 5 pale finger bones. All of a sudden, Wu Qi's finger bones turned pitch black. Vaguely, A dark mist seeped out from his fingertips, transforming into dozens of tiny, ferocious ghost faces, leaping and bouncing in his palm. A series of bone-cracking noises came from Mahi's body as he was kicked against the rock wall. Many parts of his skin and flesh exploded, splashing and splashing all over the rock wall. After pondering for a brief moment, Wu Qi stopped the soul-extracting mystic art. Without saying a word, he pulled out the poisonous fangs from the mouths of the other 4 girls, then removed the restrictive spells on them one by one. He shouted in a deep voice, "I'll give you a chance. Tell me who ordered you to do this. I'll leave you with a broken soul for reincarnation. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." While speaking, Wu Qi smiled bitterly and said, "Eunuchs can be reborn after their young is cut off, and palace maids and female officials can be subdued by him with a romantic approach. I wonder how many eunuchs, palace maids, and female officials are living in the mansions of all the princes and imperial clan members of Great Yan Dynasty. How many disciples does Lao Ai have in Great Yan Dynasty?" Shaking his head helplessly, Wu Qi turned to Zhao Kuo and told him something. Zhao Kuo was taken aback. He cursed under his breath, rose to his feet with a frown, and walked next to Yan Xiaoqi. Very quickly he took off Yan Xiaoqi's undergarments, bowed his head, and fiddled with them. After that, he raised his head, snorted coldly and said, She is indeed no longer a virgin. Elder brother, according to my experience of over 2,000 years of visiting the brothels, this girl has lost her virginity at least a few years ago." Streams of powerful divine will were sweeping across the bottom of the ocean, frantically scanning the surroundings. When the divine will swept across the underwater cave under the coral reef where Wu Qi was, the primordial runes Wu Qi had constructed had automatically blocked the detection of the divine will. However, the powerful impact of the divine will had made these runes tremble and nearly explode. The gap between Wu Qi's cultivation base and that of a heaven immortal was simply too huge. While Yan Qijuan was roaring furiously, leaping forward and slapping his horse several dozens of times in a row, trying to force Wu Qi to tell him the truth, all of a sudden, the primordial runes Wu Qi had just planted on the rock walls around the cave burst with tiny beams at the same time. Amidst a series of crackling noises, these runes began to leave traces on the dark rock walls. Tiny electric arcs burst out from the runes, brightly illuminating the dark cave. Xiong Wanling asked with a blank expression, "Does that mean we can only assume that Lao Ai is the one who did this? There is no way we can investigate further." Wu Qi sneered and said, "Also, once they are captured, they will immediately commit suicide by consuming poison, leaving only their corpses behind." Shaking his head, Wu Qi took out the sword of Greedy Wolf and began cutting the rock walls, expanding the cave. Yan Qijuan's face turned green. He was so angry that his body was shivering. Suddenly he roared furiously and rushed forward, giving Mahi a powerful kick. Slowly, Wu Qi brought his palm close to Mahi's forehead, reached into his mouth, and pulled out the poisonous fang. "Interrogating a living soul," said Wu Qi in a deep voice. "Interrogating a living soul could very well shatter the soul. It might not be able to reveal the secret we want in your mind. Therefore, in order to avoid suffering, you better tell us yourself, who asked you to murder the crown prince?" "Then we can only wait," said Zhao Kuo with a deep voice. Chapter 341. Then, Wu Qi carved out a few spacious cave abodes on the walls of the cave. In the original cave, a dozen longbow men were working hard to torture Yan Xiaoqi and the other 2 girls, following the order of the great divine Magus. The physiological quality of longbow men was different from that of ordinary human beings. Their bodies were extremely strong, and they could last for a long time. Yan Xiaoqi and the other 2 girls were violated by them in turns, and their miserable cries made Yan Qijuan feel bad. Surprisingly, Zhao Kuo was standing aside and enjoying the scene calmly. With a smile on his face, he tried to persuade Yan Xiaoqi, who was screaming in a hoarse voice, "Tell us everything, and you won't have to suffer like this. Tell us the person who ordered you to do this. Do you really want to be humiliated first, then have your souls extracted and tortured, and finally have your souls destroyed?" Zhao Kuo breathed out a long sigh and said, No one is worth your sacrifice, and no one is worth your sacrifice. Tell us the truth and you will be free. Why are you so persistent? Why are you so protective of that person? You are not worth it. Yan Xiaoqi and the other two girls widened their eyes and stared straight at Zhao Kuo. On Yan Xiaoqi's face, there was once again the sacred smile of a martyr. Gnashing her teeth, she sneered at Zhao Kuo and said, "What do you know?" 5 simple words were filled with disdain and mockery. It was as if she had come to a realization that the world was filled with turbid waves, and she was the only one who could control the clear stream. An air of loftiness and arrogance emanated from her, made Zhao Kuo speechless for a long time. Laughing bitterly, Zhao Kuo no longer paid any attention to the 3 girls, who were wailing and howling in pain. Fiddling with the little dagger in his hand, he smilingly came next to Ma He, who was lying on the ground, unable to move. "Brother, please confess obediently. Otherwise, I will use this dagger to slowly slice you piece by piece in a moment." Why don't I help you clean yourself up once? This time, I'm going to slice you piece by piece. It will be very, very, very painful for you. Lightly patting on Jin Jiao, who came to him while drooling, Zhao Kuo slowly slid the dagger across Mahi's body. Mahi looked at Zhao Kuo calmly, with a faint smile on his face. Even when the dagger cut through his body and cut off his limbs, which were greedily devoured by Goldhorn and Silverhorn, causing him to convulse in pain and break out in cold sweat, he still wore a faint smile and looked at Ma He with a mocking and disdainful expression. He was like a noble swan flying in the clouds, looking down at an unbearable toad. Ma He's gaze irritated Zhao Kuo, which made him even more ruthless and cruel. Blood and sweat flowed all over the ground, accompanied by the screams of Yan Xiaoqi and the other 2 girls. The small cave was like hell. Yan Qijuan stood aside with his hands clasped behind his back, grimacing in pain as he stared at Ma He and Yan Xiaoqi, who were plunged into a hell of torture. His face alternated between pale and green. After a long time, he coldly berated, "If you still don't confess, do you really want to suffer the pain of having your souls extracted and refined?" With great difficulty, Ma He and Yan Xiaoqi turned their heads and gave Yan Qijuan a cold glance. Suddenly they laughed coldly together. The interior of the cave was badly mutilated and badly mutilated. Wu Qi found a small cave abode which he had just opened up, using primordial runes to seal off all the auras and noises in the surroundings. After that, he carefully led Immortal Chang Wu out. Tied up like a rice dumpling by the spirit-restricting rope, Immortal Chang Wu had his eyes wide open. As his nascent divinity was completely sealed off by the rope, he had lost the ability to think. Although his eyes were open, he turned a blind eye to everything around him, completely cutting off all contact with the outside world. Sitting cross-legged next to Immortal Chang Wu, Wu Qi sighed and said, "You can't blame me. It was your woman who came to us first. You killed someone for taking upper-grade energy stones? Why are you heaven immortals so immoral? You can't even teach your own woman well. How could you do such a despicable thing by taking money to kill someone?" Patting Immortal Chang Wu's face, Wu Qi breathed out a long sigh and said, "And the result? You've harmed others and yourself. We've suffered a great loss, and you've even fallen into my hands. Why did you do that? Why did you do that? If you could educate your woman to be a good person, who has 5 virtues, 4 beauties, and 3 passions, you wouldn't be in this mess today, right? As a heaven immortal, you've fallen into my hands. Don't you feel aggrieved?" In a head-on battle, a heaven immortal could easily kill 1,000 Wu Qis with a slap. But, before Immortal Chang Wu could react, he was knocked down to the ground by Wu Qi using the Drunken Dragon incense. As a heaven immortal, he had fallen into such an aggrieved state. If Immortal Chang Wu could hear Wu Qi's words, think, and react, perhaps he would have long coughed out a mouthful of blood and died of anger because of Wu Qi. After sizing up Immortal Chang Wu for a while, Wu Qi casually ripped off all his clothes. With both hands moving like a whirlwind, Wu Qi walked around Immortal Chang Wu's body for a while, then performed several dozens of secret incantation gestures found in Scroll of Stealing. Immediately, several thousand bright beams were injected into Immortal Chang Wu's body, and several thousand silver specks were seen swimming on his skin. Wisps of natural energies kept injecting into these specks, making them look brighter and brighter. Gradually, they condensed into runes that looked like they were forged from pure silver. Wu Qi's divine will followed these runes and formed a strange force, then slowly seeped into immortal Chang Wu's body. With a gentle pull, he pulled out a clump of golden liquid that was about the size of a human head, translucent like a crystal. Several hundred tiny golden runes could be vaguely seen in the liquid, while a vast amount of immortal energy kept rushing out from it. Hastily, Wu Qi used some restrictive spells to seal off the immortal energy. After giving the golden liquid a careful look, Wu Qi could not help but smile. No wonder when immortal Chang Wu was captured alive by Wu Qi after he fell into a coma, his prime immortal item did not react at all. Apparently, as immortal Chang Wu was used to close combat, he had devoured the item spirit in this immortal item with his own nascent divinity, replacing it and becoming the item spirit of this golden immortal armor. With that, immortal Chang Wu could control the immortal armor with ease, and it could provide him with a better help in close combat. But the flaw was that after he was knocked down by the drunken dragon incense, his immortal armor did not react at all. With a faint smile on his face, Wu Qi threw the immortal armor, which was not controlled by the item spirit, onto the earth element dragon scale shield. Immediately, a large sheet of yellow dust rushed out from the shield and smashed onto the golden liquid like countless shooting stars. Slowly, they shattered the golden liquid and broke it down into tiny golden particles, which were slowly absorbed and digested by the dragon scale shield. After absorbing a part of the immortal armor's energy essence, the earth element dragon scale shield did not have any change. The golden liquid turned into a clump of half-solid golden metal, about the size of a human head. The immortal armor was forged with several dozens of rare and precious metals, which gave it a very strong defensive strength and offensive strength. As for the metal pieces that the earth element dragon scale shield could not absorb, Wu Qi pondered for a while, then with a sway of his body, 18 celestial fiend puppets walked out of his body. He threw the remaining parts of the immortal armor to the puppets. Immediately, the puppets swarmed over, spewing green smoke and poisonous flame from their mouths, corroding the immortal armor into tiny metal powder and swallowing it. Abruptly, a strong beam of light burst out from all the puppets' mouths. After fusing with the immortal armor's materials, their bodies had become a few notches stronger. That was how these celestial fiend puppets worked. By feeding them with a large amount of rare and precious materials, they could be stimulated to evolve continuously. Theoretically, they could evolve without any limit, if Wu Qi had such a huge property for them to waste. After solving the immortal armor inside immortal Chang Wu's body, Wu Qi produced the Phoenix Fire Pouch, placed immortal Chang Wu's body on top of the divine flame of order, and began to carefully burn him. As the divine flame of order seeped into immortal Chang Wu's body bit by bit, large golden crystals kept dripping out from his body, falling all over the ground like precious pearls with tinkling and clanking sounds. These crystals were the essence of immortal Chang Wu's flesh, blood, and energy essence. They were as hard as diamonds, and each of them contained an enormous amount of energy essence and blood essence. After being burned by the divine flame of order for nearly an hour, immortal Chang Wu, a 36th tier heaven immortal, was left with only 360 fist-sized golden crystals. Wu Qi kept all these crystals into the black dragon spirit ring, and threw one into the divine flame of order. Suddenly, the purple-green divine flame grew stronger and stronger, growing from the size of a strand of hair to the thickness of a water bucket, nearly 10 feet tall. The Phoenix Fire Pouch shook, and the enlarged divine flame of order compressed abruptly, quickly transforming into a nearly solid ball of purple-green flame, about the size of a soybean, hovering above the Phoenix Fire Pouch. This little flame looked inconspicuous, but the power it contained was more than 100 times greater than that of the huge divine flame just now. The blood crystals of immortals can nourish the divine flame of order? Not bad, not bad. Wu Qi grinned coldly. Immortal Chang Wu's immortal soul was left hovering in midair, glinting with a golden light like a living person. It was tightly bound by the spirit-restricting rope. The immortal soul looked like a living person, and at its core was a clump of complicated silver-white runes. These runes were swimming in immortal Chang-Wu's soul like fishes. Occasionally, a few of them would collide with each other, producing a melodious sound of metal clashing. These runes were known as heavenly Tao epigraphs. They were the specific manifestations of the profound principles of heaven and earth that immortals had comprehended from the great Tao of heaven and earth. As immortal Chang-Wu was cultivating with a pure gold element body cultivation technique, these heavenly Tao epigraphs were as sharp as blades. When Wu Qi scanned them with his divine will, he felt as if he was being hacked by a sharp blade, and felt a severe pain in his nascent divinity. The so-called scroll of stealing, the technique used to steal from the heavens. Wu Qi smiled faintly. His eyes went wide as he carefully performed incantation gestures with both hands. Countless incantation gestures were cast out gracefully, transforming into a large silver net that slowly seeped into the defenseless immortal Chang-Wu's immortal soul. Like catching a fish in a large net, all 108 silver heavenly Tao epigraphs in immortal Chang-Wu's immortal soul were captured by the net, then slowly compressed into a silver light ball the size of a sesame seed. With a gentle pull, all of immortal Chang-Wu's enlightenment of the heavenly Tao were extracted from his immortal soul by Wu Qi. At this moment, even though immortal Chang-Wu had released his immortal soul, he had forgotten all his enlightenment of the heavenly Tao. Even though he possessed the divine will and dharmic power of a heaven immortal, he still could not use any dharma spells or divine abilities. This was because he had forgotten all his enlightenment of the Tao, magic and divine abilities. Wu Qi breathed out a faint sigh, then swallowed the tiny silver light ball, quickly controlling it to rush into his dantian. The Jin Dan in Wu Qi's dantian was throbbing, as it quickly fused with all of immortal Chang-Wu's enlightenment of the heavenly Tao. An enormous spirit pressure rushed out from Wu Qi's dantian, as his Jin Dan underwent a tremendous transformation. Hastily, Wu Qi fished out several hundreds of thousands of energy stones and placed them around him. An enormous amount of natural energy kept rushing into his body from these energy stones. Silently, Wu Qi exercised White Cloud Immortal Sex Energy Unity Mystic Technique, causing the energies in his main meridians to surge and surge. All of a sudden, a blinding light burst out from the Jin Dan in his dantian. A nascent soul with a silver body sprung out from the disintegrating Jin Dan that Wu Qi suddenly had. The nascent soul had a dull expression, and its eyes were lifeless. It looked like an ignorant puppet. With a thought, Wu Qi separated a thread of divine will from his nascent divinity and injected it into the empty shell of the nascent soul. Chapter 342. False Nascent Soul. Similar to the false nascent soul formed in Wu Qi's dantian, it was a heaven-stealing technique found in Scroll of Stealing to deceive others. Using White Cloud Immortal Sex Energy Unity Mystic Technique as the foundation, it absorbed an enormous amount of natural energy, filled the golden core with immortal Chang-Wu's enlightenment of the heavenly Tao, and formed a nascent soul with the mystic technique. This nascent soul contained all of immortal Chang-Wu's enlightenment of the heavenly Tao, which was at the level of a heaven immortal. As long as Wu Qi could thoroughly comprehend all the enlightenment of the heavenly Tao, he would be able to push his cultivation base to the realm of heaven immortal with the help of this false nascent soul. However, this false nascent soul was just a false nascent soul. Instead of saying it was Wu Qi's nascent soul, it was more like a strange magical treasure that looked like a nascent soul and had the same functions as a nascent soul. It possessed all the functions of a nascent soul, but the one controlling it was just a thread of Wu Qi's divine sense. Even if the false nascent soul was destroyed one day, Wu Qi would only lose a thread of his divine sense, and it would not cause any harm to his true form. An enormous amount of natural energy was still rushing into Wu Qi's body. Wu Qi sat cross-legged. The heavenly wit fruit had improved his intelligence and the ability to comprehend the heavenly Tao to an incredible level. Together with the various magical techniques described in Scroll of Stealing, in just a few hours, Wu Qi had comprehended all the magical principles of heaven and earth recorded in immortal Chang-Wu's heavenly Tao epigraphs to the limit of peak stage nascent soul realm. During this process, The nascent soul in Wu Qi's body grew and enlarged at an incredible speed, constantly absorbing the natural energy from the outside and quickly reaching the level of peak stage nascent soul realm. An enormous amount of energy kept bursting out from the silvery bright false nascent soul, flowing quickly through the main meridians in Wu Qi's body. Wu Qi focused his mind, and countless razor-sharp silver gleams appeared around him, slicing the surrounding rock walls and sending rocks and dirt flying in all directions. With a cold snort, Wu Qi used the divine flame of order to completely refine immortal Chang Wu's immortal soul, refining it into 360 fist-sized, purple-green soul pearls. He swallowed a soul bead and a pure and powerful strand of soul origin energy rapidly surged into his sea of consciousness. It was absorbed by his soul bit by bit, allowing his soul to gradually grow and strengthen. Marvelous! Chuckling lightly, Wu Qi took out Vagabond Qing. It would also refine him. His flesh and blood essence turned into golden blood crystals, and his immortal soul turned into purple-green soul beads. Vagabond Qing Yi's cultivation base was clearly much stronger than immortal Chang Wu. He had over 400 blood crystals, and a total of 570 soul pearls. Vagabond Qing Yi primarily cultivated the Greenwood technique, and he also cultivated the breeze spell that was derived from the Greenwood technique. Inside his immortal soul were 123 light green heavenly Tao epigraphs. Wu Qi's fake nascent soul continued to devour the heavenly Tao epigraph. His fake nascent soul quickly turned into a half-silver and half-green color. Another round of crazily inhaling and exhaling energies. Wu Qi's fake nascent soul had reached the limit of his innate nascent embryo, gradually forcing it to go through some strange changes. Last was immortal Xian Yang. Among the three of them, immortal Xian Yang had the strongest cultivation base. 600 blood crystals and 800 soul pearls. This was a harvest that stunned even Wu Qi. It was especially so when immortal Xian Yang had a total of 358 heavenly Tao epigraphs in his immortal soul, indicating that his understanding of flame had reached an extremely profound level. Wu Qi even suspected that immortal Xian Yang was about to break through the realm of 36th tier heaven immortal. After devouring immortal Xian Yang's heavenly Tao epigraphs, the fake nascent soul abruptly burst out with a dazzling red gleam. The silver, green, and red gleams swirled around the fake nascent soul for a moment. Every time Wu Qi breathed, the fake nascent soul would breathe, and every time Wu Qi exhaled, the fake nascent soul would exhale as well. Between each breath, pure three-colored energies kept rushing out from the fake nascent soul, filling all the main meridians and acupoints in Wu Qi's body. 5 acquired spirit pearls flew out and circled around the fake nascent soul. Among them, the gold, green, and fire element acquired spirit pearls were glinting brilliantly, resonating with a clump of green, silver, and red runes that were tangled together in the fake nascent soul's belly. Every time the 5 acquired spirit pearls circled around, a tiny thread of the heavenly Tao would fuse with Wu Qi's nascent divinity, and Wu Qi would feel that the degree of compatibility between him and the surrounding natural energies had improved. What surprised Wu Qi the most was that he managed to separate a tiny thread of pale golden bloodline from immortal Xian Yang's blood essence. It was as thin as a strand of hair, several feet long, and its entire body was pale golden in color. It was a bloodline that even the divine flame of order could not refine. Obviously, it was the innate bloodline of some divine beast with fire element. Wu Qi sensed the ancient and desolate aura emanating from the bloodline. Based on his preliminary judgment, it might be the bloodline of a divine bird with fire element, such as the phoenix or Luan. It was no wonder that when immortal Xian Yang was chasing after Wu Qi that day, he suddenly coughed out a mouthful of blood and had a pair of flaming wings sprouted from his back. This fellow was a heaven immortal who had cultivated himself from a demon bird, and he also possessed a tiny thread of divine bird's bloodline. Using a mystic technique, he forced out a tiny thread of innate divine ability from his bloodline, allowing him to catch up with Wu Qi in just a blink of an eye. Holding the tiny thread of bloodline in his hand, Wu Qi pondered for a brief moment, then sorted out all the things left behind by the 3 heaven immortals. After letting the Earth Element Dragon Scale Shield and 18 Celestial Fiend Puppets devour Immortal Xian Yang's immortal item, the Wheel of Fire, only then did he release the 3 demon sinecures of Great Zhao from the spirit-breeding ring. Taking the opportunity when the 3 demon sinecures were knocked unconscious by the drunken dragon incense, Wu Qi broke their nascent divinity and left behind a tiny restrictive spell in their nascent divinity, firmly controlling their life and death. After placing a tiny restrictive spell on them and making sure that he had complete control over their life and death, Wu Qi took out the antidote and woke them up. Upon opening their eyes, the 3 demon cultivators let out a furious roar and sprung to their feet, getting ready to strike. Wu Qi smiled faintly and flicked his finger. The 3 demon cultivators let out a miserable howl, as a black gleam flashed across their nascent divinity. It was as if their nascent divinity were struck by a thunderbolt, causing them to twitch and fall to the ground with cold sweat oozing out from their bodies. 3 mighty nascent divinity demon cultivators were tormented by Wu Qi to the point where they could neither live nor die. Holding their heads in their hands, they kept rolling on the ground while letting out miserable howls and howls. Wu Qi looked coldly at the 3 sinecures of Great Zhao, who were struggling and howling miserably on the ground, crying and wailing and nearly dying from the pain, yet they could not even fall unconscious. He sat cross-legged on the ground, wearing a cold face and letting them howl and howl miserably for a full 15 minutes. Only then did he slowly retract the restrictive spell. With that, the severe pain in their nascent divinity was gone, but they still howled and howled miserably for quite a while. Finally, they fell limply to the ground and panted heavily, staring at Wu Qi as if they had just seen a ghost. With a faint smile on his face, Wu Qi said in a deep voice, "From today onwards, the 3 of you are my men." Glancing at the 3 of them, Wu Qi chuckled and said, "If you are not convinced, you can commit suicide. But remember, you must destroy your nascent divinity, leaving not even a trace of your true spirit behind. Otherwise, the pain you have just experienced will be 1,000 times worse. If you don't want to commit suicide, it's very simple. You just have to listen to me and obey me. When you become heaven immortals, no, when you become gold immortals, I'll remove the restrictive spell in your nascent divinity." The 3 demon cultivators exchanged glances, not saying a word. Removing the restrictive spell in their nascent divinity after they became gold immortals? How long would that take? Those with insufficient aptitude would never be able to cultivate to the realm of gold immortals for the rest of their lives. Could it be that they would be restrained by him for the rest of their lives? Before the 3 of them could recover from their shock, Wu Qi snorted coldly and activated the restrictive spell again. Once again, the 3 of them were rolling and howling miserably on the ground. This time, 18 celestial fiend puppets rushed forward at the same time, with 6 of them serving each of them. Punches and kicks rained down on the 3 of them like raindrops, beating them to their heart's content. These celestial fiend puppets did not have bodies of flesh and blood, and they were cultivating the celestial fiend cultivation technique. Each of their punches was as heavy as Mount Tai. Although the 3 demon cultivators only had the cultivation base of nascent divinity, their skin and flesh were still torn and their bones broken. The pain of having their nascent divinity incinerated on the inside, and the pain of having their flesh and bones broken on the outside. After a round of tempering, the 3 demon cultivators knelt down on the ground, crying and wailing, and bowed their once proud and unruly heads in resignation. Wu Qi sized them up coldly for a while, then cried out coldly, "Come with me. From now on, you will still be Great Zhao sinecures, and you can do whatever you want. But if there is any news related to Great Yen, you just have to inform me." The 3 demon kings who were forcibly subdued by Wu Qi answered helplessly. They were True Lord Windbreaking, Green Shadow, the Demon of Green Eagle, and Supremacy 5 Mountains, the Demon of Gopher. All of them were demon kings who lived deep in the mountains and forests of Great Zhao, ferocious old demons who had lived for many years, and nascent divinity cultivators with formidable cultivation bases. After undoing the soundproof restrictive spell at the entrance of the cave abode, Wu Qi brought the 3 demon cultivators, whose faces were livid with rage and drenched in cold sweat, into the water cave outside. Wearing a smile on his face, Zhao Kuo was still cutting Ma He and the other two men. All three of them had been cut to the bone, but no one knew what method Zhao Kuo had used to control them. Although their skin and flesh were cut clean, they were still alive. Ma He was still cursing Zhao Kuo with a stutter, and cursing his ancestors. How could we be defeated by your torture? How could we betray our master? Wu Qi could not help but shake his head as he looked at Ma He, who was still persisting in this situation. Then, he said coldly, if he still refuses to confess, we have no choice but to extract his soul and read through his memories. I hope this fellow's soul is a little stronger, so we can torture him for a little longer. I also hope there are no restrictive spells in his soul, or else, it will be a big problem. Before he could finish his words, Yan Xiaoqi suddenly let out a hoarse scream. No, no more. I'll tell you. We're sent by Master Feng. Feng Qianli, Master Feng. He asked us to come to Shui Yuan planet. It's Master Feng. With all the skin and flesh on his face scraped off, Ma He turned his head around with great effort, glaring furiously at Yan Xiaoqi, who was being pressed under the long bow men and being whipped endlessly. He shouted sternly, Little Seven, are you crazy? How could you betray your master? You. Right when Ma He was cursing loudly, Wu Qi pointed his finger at Ma He's forehead. A plume of dark smoke sprayed out from his fingers, pulling Ma He's soul out from his body. Countless black talismans rushed into Ma He's soul. Abruptly, a jade-colored gleam flashed across his soul, and with a loud boom, his soul exploded into pieces. Although Wu Qi was fast, he could only grab a tiny fragment of Ma He's soul and read through a little bit of his memory. Damn it, there really is a restrictive spell in their souls. Wu Qi cursed furiously. However, the little bit of memory he obtained was more than enough for Wu Qi to use. It was Ma He's childhood memory. When he was 3 years old, he was taken in as a disciple by Feng Qianli, the teacher of Yu Academy, and when he was 6 years old, Feng Qianli sent him to the Imperial Palace. He is indeed Feng Qianli's disciple. Wu Qi turned to look at Yan Qijuan and asked, Is Feng Qianli very famous? Yan Qijuan opened his mouth and said with a dry voice, He is the teacher of Great Yan Imperial Clan. Since 150 years ago, he has been the first master of Great Yan Imperial Clan. He has always had a very good relationship with Great Yan Imperial Clan. Wu Qi nodded his head, then pulled out the souls of the other two men as well. Just when he was about to interrogate them with a mystic technique, the cave suddenly trembled violently. Crash! All the primordial runes constructed by Wu Qi shattered at the same time. Chapter 343. On the Spirit Cloud Peak of White Cloud Planet. The Spirit Cloud Peak towered above the boundless ocean of clouds. On the precipitous cliff, large patches of pine trees and wisterias grew freely, extending and absorbing the rain, dew, and sunlight. Strong gusts of wind blew through these pine trees, bringing up large patches of rainbows on the peak. Princess Zhonglu was sitting on the trunk of an ancient pine tree. Her skirt was filled with pine nuts, and she was peeling them off one by one and eating them. A few colorful sparrows were flying around her, and from time to time, they would snatch 2 pine nuts from her fingertips and eat them. The ancient pine tree was deeply rooted on the cliff, reaching over 70 to 80 feet out of the cliff. Princess Zhonglu was sitting on the trunk. Thousands of feet away from her feet was the surging ocean of clouds, a bottomless abyss. A large amount of natural energies kept surging into Princess Zhongli's body. She did not deliberately cultivate herself, but just sat on the trunk, eating pine nuts and having fun. The natural energies quickly surged into her body, transforming into her power and energy. It would take an ordinary person a few months to achieve a cultivation base, but she just sat on the trunk, enjoying the scenery and eating pine nuts, and her cultivation base would improve by itself. She did not have to worry about it at all. Sitting on the tree trunk, Princess Zhongli looked at the boundless white clouds rolling and rocking in the sky. Suddenly, she stretched her back and breathed out a long sigh. Gently swinging her legs, Princess Zhongli tilted her head and looked at a flock of white cranes that had just soared into the sky from under the ocean of clouds. A 5-colored light suddenly flashed in her eyes, and the natural energies surged into her body at a much faster speed. Giggling, Princess Zhangli grabbed a handful of pine nuts and threw them down into the ocean of clouds. She said happily, "Heavenly wit fruit? Not bad, very delicious. The effect is not bad." Princess Zhangli was in a very good mood. She was humming a little tune as a five-colored divine gleam kept flashing in her eyes. Gradually, her body became hazy, like an old photo that was embedded in a frosted glass, blurred and hard to see clearly. While throwing pine nuts and looking at the scenery, Princess Zhangli suddenly entered the state of Tao enlightenment that all cultivators dreamed of. Once an ordinary cultivator entered the state of Tao enlightenment, he or she would obtain the essence of the great Tao in a short period of time, which was equivalent to what he or she would obtain in dozens of years. However, without hundreds of years of arduous cultivation, without taking a bath and fasting, and entering a secluded cultivation, ordinary cultivators were not qualified to enter the state of Tao enlightenment. However, Princess Zhangli entered this mysterious and unpredictable state so easily, as if she was just playing around. If there were any other cultivators present, and they saw how easily Princess Zhangli entered the state of enlightenment as if she was eating pine nuts, perhaps they would vomit blood with anger, and their eyes would turn green with envy. When Princess Zhangli entered the state of enlightenment and communicated with the mysterious and unfathomable heavenly Tao, she was still singing, humming an unknown folk song. Along with the gentle singing, the surrounding natural energies rolled and swirled around Princess Zhangli, transforming into an extremely dense energy ball with a diameter of several tens of feet. A few little sparrows who were flying around Princess Zhangli were chirping happily, while the dense natural energies in the surroundings were pouring into their bodies. Instinctively, these little sparrows sensed that such a thing would bring them great benefits. Therefore, they chirped excitedly and flew even more vigorously around Princess Zhangli. Faintly, a five-colored light shone out of the energy ball, and the wind and clouds around Spirit Cloud Peak began to change. Dark clouds slowly pressed down from the sky, covering an area of over 100 miles in circumference, and were about to collide with the ocean of white clouds down below. All of a sudden, countless finger-thick silver lightning bolts struck down from the dark clouds, shattering the white clouds down below and exposing the mountains, rivers, towns, and villages in a very distant place. Hee. An hour later, the dark clouds dispersed, and the lightning bolts vanished without a trace. The energy ball around Princess Zhangli suddenly disintegrated, revealing Princess Zhangli, whose skin seemed to have become much smoother and smoother. A five-colored divine light flashed across the spot between her eyebrows, following which, a fist-sized nascent soul that looked exactly the same as Princess Zhangli sprung out from between her eyebrows, its body glowing with a five-colored light. The nascent soul flew around Princess Zhangli for a while, then disappeared into the top of her head. Princess Zhangli tilted her head and pondered for a while, then happily nodded her head and said with a smile, Peak stage nascent soul realm? I think so, right? As long as I can form my nascent soul, I can live forever and be young forever? Wonderful. Zi Xian doesn't want to be a withered old woman. Twitching her lips and making a funny face, Princess Zhangli broke a few pine nuts and fed them to the little sparrow who was flying around her. After that, a complacent smile appeared on her face. Along with the gentle breeze, her bell-like laughter spread far and wide, scaring a group of white monkeys who were looking for fruits among pine nuts on a cliff several thousand feet away. They nearly lost their footing and fell off the cliff. The group of monkeys flew into a rage out of humiliation, baring their teeth and roaring at Princess Zhangli. After that, they quickly grabbed the pine nuts and ran far away. Suddenly, a sword beam shot down from the Spirit Cloud Peak. Standing on the sword beam, Bai Zhuer cried out anxiously, "Your Highness, someone is coming from Star-Picking City." Princess Zhangli was stunned for a moment, then she immediately transformed into a five-colored light beam and soared into the sky, wrapping Bai Zhuer up and flying towards the top of the Spirit Cloud Peak. The light only flickered faintly, and in the next moment, Princess Zhangli and Bai Zhuer had arrived at the top of the peak, landing on a flat dam surrounded by pine nuts, bamboos, and plum blossoms. On this flat dam, which was only about 1 acre in size, were 7 to 8 small thatched cottages, surrounded by pine nuts, bamboos, and plum blossoms. A few female Taoists clad in green outfits were reciting some Taoist scriptures outside one of the cottages. When they saw Princess Zhanglu flying down, they quickly rose to their feet and greeted her as ancestral master with the utmost respect. Princess Zhanglu waved her hand. Her eyes darted left and right as she shouted, "Bai Zhuer, where are they? Who is coming from star-picking city?" 3 young ladies clad in green outfits and dark green cloaks on their backs, embroidered with patterns of swallows and clouds, came up to Princess Zhanglu. They knelt down on one knee before Princess Zhanglu and said softly, "Greetings, Your Highness. Long live Your Highness." Princess Zhanglu gave them a look, nodded and said, "Yan Xiaosan, Yan Xiaowu, and Yan Xiaojiu, why are you here? What is it that you can't let your subordinates handle? Why are you, the 3 of you, the team officers, here?" Yan Xiaosan, Yan Xiaowu, and Yan Xiaojiu were one of the 10 team officers among the 3,000 team officers in Star Picking City. Each of them managed 300 team officers, and in Star Picking City, they were in charge of all the important departments. Therefore, Princess Zhanglu found it strange that they had to come here personally. Moreover, now that they had left Star Picking City, what about the affairs they were in charge of? The 3 of them rose to their feet. Then Yan Xiaosan said with a deep voice, "Your Highness, we have received a secret decree from His Majesty. The Crown Prince has been attacked in Shuiyuan Planet and is severely wounded. His Majesty wants Your Highness to hurry to Dark Radiance Planet, where you, together with eunuch Ma Yi, will bring some men to rescue the Crown Prince. This is an emergency, so Your Highness, please depart at once." After that, Yan Xiaosan flipped her palm, and a pale green scroll and a green jade medallion appeared in her palm. Princess Zhanglu gave Yan Xiaosan a surprised look. She took over the scroll and unfurled it. It was an imperial decree, and judging from the handwriting and seal, it was indeed written by Yan Dan. On top of that, the seal was the national seal of Great Yan Dynasty, and the jade medallion was the seal of Great Yan Dynasty. On the other hand, the jade medallion was the forbidden medallion of Great Yan Dynasty's imperial palace. Only when someone was sent to carry out an important mission related to the imperial clan would they release this medallion. Both the imperial decree and the medallion were here. Princess Zhanglu frowned, stared at Yan Xiaosan, and said coldly, "You want me to meet eunuch Ma Yi in Dark Radiance Planet? Is there any news about Duke Tianyun?" Yan Xiaosan bowed her head respectfully and said, "Imperial Advisor Xiong has sent us a message using a mystic technique. Duke Tianyun has met up with the Crown Prince on Shuiyuan Planet. However, the enemy is very strong, and Duke Tianyun is severely wounded as well." After a moment of silence, Yan Xiaosan said carefully in a low voice, "In order to rescue the Crown Prince, Duke Tianyun was besieged by 7 Earth Immortals of nascent soul realm. Jin Dan is severely wounded, and I'm afraid he will lose his cultivation base." 7 Earth Immortals of nascent soul realm? Princess Zhanglu looked at Yan Xiaosan curiously. Yan Xiaosan bowed slightly and said, "Yes. The news sent by Imperial Advisor Xiong." Before Yan Xiaosan could finish her words, Princess Zhanglu had already given her a heavy slap on the face. Half of her face was badly mutilated, and even her cheekbone was dented by the slap. The slap was fast and heavy. Although Yan Xiaosan's face was badly mutilated, her neck and body did not move at all. All the force landed on her face, shooting out together with her broken bones and flesh. The slap stunned Yan Xiaosan. Her face went numb, and she could not even feel the pain. Standing next to her, Yan Xiaowu and Yan Xiaojiu reacted very quickly. They gave a loud cry together, and suddenly, 2 white beams darted out from their sleeves, piercing through the air and flying towards Princess Zhanglu. A bright gleam flickered in Princess Zhangli's eyes. She saw that the white beams were actually ropes as thick as a thumb, densely covered with dark runes and runes. When the white beams were still a few feet away from Princess Zhanglu, a cold energy had already tightly locked her body. Sneering mockingly, a 5-colored ray suddenly emerged behind Princess Zhangli's back. The originally hazy and fleeting 5-colored ray converged inwardly, transforming into 5 sword beams that swept out horizontally. She exercised her innate divine ability with the Unity of Sword Energies script, and the 5-colored sword beams condensed into a nearly tangible flying sword. Right when the white ropes collided with the 5 sword beams, they were immediately ripped into pieces. Bai Zhuer and Bai Zuer cried out in alarm. They struck out at the same time, thrusting 2 sword beams towards Yan Xiaowu and Yan Xiaojiu. Suddenly, a chilly wind towered up into the sky from one of the thatched cottages. Tens of hazy ghost shadows darted out from the wind, and in just a blink of an eye, they had arrived before Yan Xiaosan and her companions. When Bai Zhuer and Bai Zuer's sword beams had flown less than 3 feet away, the tens of ghost immortals who had been protecting Princess Zhonglu had already tightly restrained Yan Xiaosan and her companions. A few cracking noises rang out, as the knees of all 3 of them were broken by the kicks. They fell heavily to their knees and howled miserably with pain. Princess Zhonglu snorted coldly. She retracted the sword beams, waved her little hands and gave the 3 kneeling men a series of violent slaps. After Yan Xiaosan and her companions were beaten beyond recognition and fainted, Princess Zhongli's brows twitched. Grinning coldly, she said, "Send a letter to Senior Sister Jiang Xian and Senior Sister Jiang Rui, asking them to accompany me back to Star-Picking City." How dare you imitate the secret decree personally written by my imperial grandfather? Too bad, you've made a mistake. In the letters and decrees that imperial grandfather sends to my father and me, he only uses his personal seal, and never the national seal. A bunch of fools. 2 rune beams shot out from Spirit Cloud Peak. Before long, Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui, 2 early-stage nascent divinity female cultivators who served White Cloud Immortal by Xia, arrived on White Clouds. Princess Zhongli gladly cupped her fist and bowed to both her senior sisters, then said obediently, "Senior sisters, please accompany me back to Myriad Immortals planet. Some people in Star-Picking City need to be cleaned up." 15 minutes later, Princess Zhongli returned to Star-Picking City together with a large group of people, including several hundred cultivators from White Cloud Immortal Sect. Chapter 344. Star-Picking City was surrounded by water on 3 sides, and it was a vast expanse of water. Countless fishes, shrimps, and demon beasts could be seen in broad daylight. Often, groups of aquatic demons and sea monsters could be seen leaping from the ocean to the shore, wandering around. There were even large groups of demons and ghosts who wandered around Star-Picking City, just like how ordinary people would go shopping. However, no matter it was the residents of the city, or the merchants who came from afar, none of them were surprised by these demons and ghosts. They all knew that the owner of Star-Picking City, Great Yan's Duke of Tianyun, Wu Qi, was a good friend of the 2 dragon kings who lived in the ocean. As these demons and ghosts were the subordinates of the 2 dragon kings, they would never stir up any trouble in Star-Picking City. On the contrary, with the patronage of these demons and ghosts, Star-Picking City had attracted more powerful merchants. As these demons and ghosts could dive deep into the ocean, they were able to find many rare and precious treasures that no human cultivators could find. Once these demons and ghosts found something valuable, or something they could not identify, they would excitedly come to Star-Picking City to sell. These rare and precious treasures were paid with energy stones. With energy stones, these demons and ghosts could exchange them for all kinds of flying swords, magical items, talismans, and spirit pills in Star-Picking Pavilion. As for these items, these low-grade little demons and ghosts could never even dream of getting so many excellent items crafted by human cultivators. Therefore, they were motivated to search the surrounding ocean, collecting countless precious treasures and sending them back to Star-Picking City. Because of these precious treasures produced from the ocean, Star-Picking City was constantly visited by merchants. Even the merchants from the other few kingdoms had gradually come to Star-Picking City to purchase all kinds of rare and precious items. Compared to 3 years ago, when it was just built, Star-Picking City was now densely populated, and vaguely, it had the appearance of a large metropolis. On the other hand, Great Yan Dynasty was constantly sending the people requested by Wu Qi to this place. To the north of Star-Picking City, more cities, towns, and villages were being built. A strong light flashed on a long-distance teleportation formation in Star-Picking City, as Princess Zhonglu walked out from it together with a large group of people. The teleportation formation was specially constructed for the top management of Star-Picking City, and it connected Star-Picking City with all the other major cities of Great Yen. It was located right in the heart of the City Lord Mansion. The moment Princess Zhonglu walked out, several cultivators standing guard near the teleportation array rushed forward to greet her. They bowed respectfully towards Princess Zhonglu. Gently waving her hand, Princess Zhonglu said with a deep voice, "Where is Lu Xun? Call him over." In less than the time it took to brew a pot of tea, Lu Xun rushed over with a few of his subordinates. When he saw Princess Zhonglu from afar, Lu Xun bowed respectfully and said with a smile, "Welcome, Princess. Please forgive me for not welcoming you earlier." Princess Zhonglu raised her eyebrows and sneered, "Welcome from afar? Where are you going to welcome him? Use your name to gather all the female officials and eunuchs in the city. In short, gather all the men I brought from the Imperial Palace, and ask them to gather in the drill ground in the City Lord Mansion." Lu Xun answered, then quickly gave a glance at Yen Xiaosan and her two companions, who were standing behind Princess Zhonglu, being restrained by a few burly disciples of White Cloud Immortal Sect. Then he spun and rushed out of the drill ground. Lu Xun's eyes darted back and forth, his brows knitted into a tight frown as he quickened his pace. These female officials were the elites secretly trained by Great Yen Imperial Clan, the elites who served the members of the Imperial Clan. On top of that, Yen Xiaosan and her two companions were the leaders of the female officials. They held a high position and held great power in Star-Picking City. Obviously, Princess Zhonglu had escorted them here, and from the looks of it, she had already given them a round of torture. What had actually happened? Although his mind was filled with countless thoughts, Lu Xun did not waste any time and rushed to the main hall of the City Lord Mansion, where all the city affairs were handled. Hastily, he ordered his subordinates to ring the golden bell and jade drum, which were used to summon all the officials in the city. When all the officials in Star-Picking City heard the sound of the golden bell and jade drum, they all rushed to the mayor's mansion. After Lu Xun came up with a series of excuses, all 3,000 lady officials and 1,000 imperial eunuchs gathered at the drill ground next to the back garden of the mayor's mansion. After doing a head count, Lu Xun hastily came before Princess Zhonglu, who was standing on the observation platform. He bowed and said in a low voice, "Your Highness, I've done a quick check. Apart from Yen Xiaosen, Yen Xiaowu, and Yen Xiaojiu, Yen Xiaoqi and two others who are not here, all the other lady officers are here. 1,000 imperial eunuchs, not a single one is missing." Princess Zhonglu answered softly, then slowly rose to her feet and walked to the edge of the reviewing platform, looking down at the thousands of lady officials and eunuchs standing below. From left to right, Princess Zhonglu glanced at these female officials and eunuchs, then with a deep voice, she shouted, "Some of you should know the reason why I suddenly came back to the city. I don't want to waste my time. Those who are Yen Xiaosan and the other two's accomplices, step out now. I'll only kill you and spare your family." Pausing for a while, Princess Zhonglu sneered and said, "If you refuse to surrender and I find out who you are, don't blame me for being merciless. I'll definitely kill every single one of your family members. Think about your own family members, don't drag them into this mess." The whole place fell into a dead silence. No one made a sound. Princess Zhongli's face immediately turned unsightly. She sneered and said, "Fine, you refuse to come out? Hee, you guys are really bold. How dare you forge an imperial edict, trying to fool me into going to Dark Radiance Planet? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to rebel?" With a backhand slap on Yen Xiaosan's face, Princess Zhonglu snapped, "Yen Xiaosan, tell me, who is your accomplice?" Yen Xiaosan, whose cheekbone was broken, coughed out a mouthful of blood. She gave Princess Zhonglu a look, then suddenly dropped to her knees on the observation platform. With a hoarse voice, she cried out, "Your Highness, it's Xiaosan's fault. Xiaosan has wronged your Highness. Xiaosan will tell you the truth right now. Among our sisters, there are a total of 723 who have joined Great Sun Sect just like us." Princess Zhongli's expression flickered. Suddenly, among all the lady officials down below, several hundred of them rode on their flying swords and sped up into the sky. Some of them, whose cultivation base was not strong enough to fly on flying swords, simply exercised a light body technique and leaped into the sky, fleeing in panic. No matter it was flying on flying swords or using movement techniques, they were fleeing in all directions at the fastest speed. Like a hornet whose nest had been disturbed, they flew out in a messy manner. Princess Zhongli's face turned livid with rage. Grinning coldly, she said, "Senior sisters, please help us." Jiang Exin and Jiang Rui cried out, transforming into two streams of white mist and soaring up into the sky. At the same time, they waved their hands and clenched their fists. Both early-stage nascent divinity cultivators struck at the same time, exercising the mystic divine ability of White Cloud Immortal Sect, the sky-covering white cloud stamp. Immediately, countless water vapor gathered from all directions, transforming into a hazy cloud with their will, blotting out the sky and enveloping all the fleeing female officials. Abruptly, the cloud tightened, and all the fleeing female officials froze in midair, unable to move even a finger. One after another, several hundred cultivators from White Cloud Immortal Sect brought here by Princess Zhonglu flew up into the sky, pulling out specially made restraining ropes and getting ready to tie up these female officials. Princess Zhonglu frowned and cried out sternly, "Why are you tying them up? Cripple all their cultivation bases. Since they have betrayed Great Yen, the cultivation bases given to them by Great Yen will naturally be taken back. Let's just cripple their cultivation bases directly, saving us a lot of trouble." Upon hearing that, all the cultivators from White Cloud Immortal Sect were taken aback. One after another, they retracted the specially made restraining ropes, then lightly pressed their palms on the lower abdomens of those female officials. With just a light touch, over 700 female officials' meridians and acupoints were destroyed, and their cultivation bases were gone in an instant. Only then did Jiang Exin and Jiang Rui wave their hands. A large cloud wrapped around these female officials, and they landed lightly on the ground. Both girls exchanged a glance and smiled, then turned to Princess Zhonglu, nodded and said, "Junior sister, what should we do with these people?" Princess Zhonglu gave Yan Shaosen, who was kneeling on the ground and shouting a fuss, a cold glance, and shook her head lightly. Then, she pointed at those female officials who were lying on the ground, unable to move. Grinning coldly, Princess Zhonglu said, "Somebody, chop off their heads and hang them at the city gates as a warning to others. Find out their names and backgrounds, then hand them over to scouting office. According to the law, they will be held accountable for the crimes of their clan members. I've said it before, if they refuse to behave themselves, I'll kill all their clan members. Remember this, don't leave any of them alive. Tell the people of scouting office that if one of their clan members escapes, I'll never let them go." Lu Zun bowed his head and answered, then clapped his hands forcefully. A large group of Star-Picking City's armored soldiers rushed into the drill ground, dragging away those female officials who were crying out loud. Not long after that, the crisp sound of axes chopping flesh and bones was heard coming from outside the drill ground, and a strong smell of blood wafted into the drill ground along with the wind. Princess Zhonglu snorted coldly, then gave those female officials and eunuchs a sidelong glance, who dared not to move in the drill ground. She said coolly, "Yan Shaosen has exposed some of you who are harboring evil intentions. I'm sure some of you have slipped through the net. Come out on your own, and I'll spare the lives of your entire clan." Yan Shaosen was stunned for a moment, then she said in a hoarse voice, "Your Highness, all 723 sisters have?" Smiling, Princess Zhonglu kicked Yan Xiaosan's face forcefully and snapped, "Do you really think I'm more stupid than you? I haven't even punished you, and you've already betrayed all 723 of your friends? Are you trying to hide something, or are you trying to cover up something? Or, are you trying to use me to eradicate the disciples of Great Sun Sect? Yan Shaosen, who is the one who asked you to deceive me?" Upon hearing Princess Zhongli's words, Yan Shaosen didn't say a word for a long time. After a long while, she abruptly chuckled and slowly shook her head. Sighing lightly, Yan Shaosen stared at Princess Zhonglu and said with a cold voice, "Your Highness, I didn't expect you to be so smart. Princess Zhonglu was fuming with anger. Have I always been stupid? She said furiously. Yen Shaoxin narrowed her eyes, gave a strange laugh and said, I must say, Your Highness is much smarter than before. The corner of Princess Zhongli's mouth twitched with anger. The five-colored divine ray behind her suddenly condensed, transformed into a sword beam, and shot out. Yen Shaoxin gave a miserable howl as one of her arms flew off, leaving a trail of blood behind. Your accomplices are still down there, snapped Princess Zhonglu. Tell me their names. From afar, a deep voice filled with an evil power rang out. Princess Zhonglu, are you proud of yourself for killing so many of my disciples? Amidst the strong light emitted by the teleportation formation, a tall figure soared up into the sky. It was Lao AI with a gloomy face, flying swiftly toward them. Chapter 345. Compared to usual, Lao AI looked even more evil and domineering today. His facial features did not change at all, and his stature was exactly the same as usual. He did not release any aura, and was simply flying through the air. But he gave the impression of a dark cloud that was slowly approaching. It was an illusion that a dark cloud was pressing down on the city, making everyone feel so uncomfortable that they were about to vomit blood. Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui stood on either side of Princess Zhonglu, protecting her. Lao AI, what are you trying to do? Cried Jiang Xian, who had a delicate face. With his hands clasped behind his back, Lao AI slowly flew over the drill ground. He looked coldly at Yen Shaoxin, who was lying on the ground on the reviewing platform, and said coolly, I've spent so much effort to plant someone in the palace, and now he is being sold by a few bitches? Interesting, very interesting. With a complicated expression, Yen Shaoxin stared at Lao AI, who was hovering in midair. Suddenly, she reached out her hand and gently cut her neck with her fingernail. A stream of blood sprayed out from her neck, but what came out of her body was a strange liquid that was as clear as water, devoid of any color of blood. Yen Shaoxin giggled. Suddenly, her body tilted and fell heavily to the ground. Her body twitched violently, then disintegrated into a puddle of sticky liquid that was devoid of any color of blood. Not only did her body disintegrate, but Yen Shaoxin's soul also shattered abruptly. Under the illumination of the sunlight, her disintegrated soul turned into a wisp of green smoke and drifted away. Only a few miserable howls that only cultivators with powerful divine sense could hear resounded in the air, and then Yen Shaoxin's soul disappeared without a trace. Yen Xiaowu and Yen Xiaojiu exchanged a glance, then simultaneously reached out their fingers and gently cut their own necks. A stream of blood sprayed out from their necks. It was the same clear liquid that was as clear as water. Abruptly, their bodies fell limply to the ground, and very quickly, they turned into a puddle of sticky liquid. Just like Yen Shaoxin, their souls were completely destroyed, leaving behind no soul fragments that could be used as evidence. Lao AI snorted coldly, then snapped in a low voice, How dare you betray your master? Do you really think everything will end with your deaths? With a sinister smile, Lao AI suddenly landed on the platform. Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui immediately guarded Princess Zhonglu and took a few steps back. Jiang Rui, who had a voluptuous body and a beautiful face, shouted coldly, Lao AI, what are you trying to do? Kirito tilted his head, and a wicked smile spread across his face. He gently swayed his body back and forth, laughing in a strange voice, What are you doing? Do something this king is happy to do. Hee, I've been following Sume, that vixen, and I've learned all kinds of magical techniques from her enchantment palace. Now, I'm lacking a few cauldrons. The two of you are at the primordial soul realm, which is perfect for this king to break through a realm. With a pair of eyes flickering with a faint pink evil gleam, Lao AI glanced at Princess Zhonglu and said in a sinister voice, As for you, your highness, with the innate bloodline in your body, you should be able to help me advance to the heaven immortal realm, right? I didn't expect the princess to have such a precious item. Only a man like me, who cherishes flowers, would know how to enjoy such a wonderful item. Why should I let those green-haired boys have it? Then he gave a strange laugh. Before Princess Zhanglu could say anything, Lao Ai stretched out both hands and thrust them out. Two large pink hands, each several feet in circumference, thrust out whistling noises of thunder. A faint, warm aroma spread in all directions, as all the female officials and eunuchs in the drill ground fell to the ground. Lao Ai laughed wildly and said, "Three little beauties, come with me obediently." Shielding Princess Zhanglu, Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui retreated quickly. Furiously, Princess Zhanglu glared at Lao Ai and snapped, "Lao Ai, you are too audacious." Lao Ai sneered and said, "Audacious? Princess, you have killed so many of my beloved concubines, and you still dare to say that I am audacious? Hee, I'll do it to you today, so what? Su Mayer, that coquettish vixen, is about to break through the realm of heaven immortal. If worst comes to worst, after enjoying you, I'll go to a remote planet with her and set up my own sect, living happily there." Then, two large hands grabbed towards Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui at lightning speed. Both girls performed incantation gestures and were about to fight Lao Ai, but suddenly, a golden beam burst out from Lao Ai's palms and smashed viciously onto their chests, piercing through their defensive barrier and sending them flying away. A glinting golden talisman, 1 foot and 2 inches long, flashed across Lao Ai's palm. Laughing hideously, Lao Ai said, "How does an immortal talisman taste? You're just an early-stage nascent divinity cultivator." The defensive barrier around Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui was shattered. An evil force that felt like a thunderbolt, yet at the same time, it came with a soul-devouring and bone-melting itch, surged into their bodies, sealing their meridians and imprisoning their nascent divinity. Their bodies felt limp and weak, and they could not muster any strength. What was even worse was that a strange thought, which they had never experienced before, rose uncontrollably from their hearts. A strange warm current ran wildly through their bodies, and their cheeks turned pink abruptly. Their eyes turned watery, and their bodies softened and fell to the ground. Princess Zhanglu was greatly alarmed. She grabbed Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui. Then suddenly, a 5-colored cloud emerged from under her feet as she quickly fled into the sky. No one knew the origin of the 5-colored auspicious light that she was born with, but it had an incredibly high compatibility with the natural energies. She was not riding on a sword beam, but merely flying on the cloud, yet her flying speed was actually comparable to that of Wu Qi when he was using the acquired magnetic sword escape technique. Lao Ai gave a strange laugh, retracted his 2 pink hands, and said in a low voice, "How can I let go of such a delicious meat that is already in my mouth? I never thought that there would be such a good thing waiting for me on Myriad Immortals' planet." The connate spiritual qi, which was innately connected to all living things in the world, was a shortcut to the golden immortal realm for those cultivators. Even if I could get my hands on it, I could. After calculating with his fingers, Lao Ai murmured to himself in a low voice in a strange tone, "Excellent. If I can kill this Princess Zhanglu and seize all her true yin and true spirits, I'll be able to increase White Tiger Saint Soul's cultivation by at least several tens of thousands of years, and my lifespan will be extended by at least 3 periods. With a lifespan of 3 Yuan Hui, who among my brothers can compete with me for the time being? Wonderful. It was just a routine secret inspection, but I never thought that there would be such a wonderful thing." Laughing wildly, Lao Ai cried out sternly, "Princess Zhanglu, little Zixien, don't run away. I'll love you like a good girl." No ripple of energy could be sensed from him, and not even a glimmer of light could be seen. With a sway of his body, Lao Ai came before Princess Zhanglu in a flash. He stretched out his arms, and Princess Zhanglu nearly bumped into his chest. Lao Ai chuckled at the panic-stricken Princess Zhanglu and said, be a good girl, and I'll love you like a good girl. This innate psychic chi can't be given to those brats who don't know anything." Staring fixedly at Princess Zhongli's beautiful and exquisite face that looked like it could only be found in a painting, Lao Ai said in a deep voice, "Be obedient to me, and I'll give you endless glory and wealth in the future, as well as countless benefits. I'm not bluffing. What I can give you is beyond your imagination. If you don't submit to this king, then blame this king for being ruthless and killing you. Princess Zhang clenched her teeth and stared at Lao Ai. Her little face was taut, but she did not say a word. Just now, Lao Ai suddenly appeared before her and blocked her way. That was definitely not the teleportation ability of a nascent divinity cultivator. Instead, Princess Zhang had a vague feeling that Lao Ai himself was that fast. His flying speed was as fast as the teleportation ability of a nascent divinity cultivator. Lao Ai grinned coldly, reaching out his hand and grabbing toward Princess Zhang. "Yes, be obedient just like that," he said with a hideous smile. "The scenery here is not bad, and it's high up in the sky. Now, you and I will have a good time together. Give me your innate spiritual energy, and I'll give you endless benefits in the future." Suddenly, a blinding five-colored light burst out from between Princess Zhongli's brows, and a faintly discernible pressure spread out from it. Lao Ai stared at Princess Zhonglu in surprise, then smiled and said, "Are you still going to put up a stubborn resistance? What's the point?" Spreading his arms indifferently, Lao Ai laughed and said, "Then, little princess, let's see if you can hurt me with all your strength." Princess Zhonglu stared coldly at Lao Ai. Quickly, all the energy in her body was injected into the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither, which was being nourished in her spiritual ocean. Gradually, the strings on the zither lit up. Strange runes flew out from the zither like countless phoenixes dancing in the sky, absorbing Princess Zhongli's energy and transforming it into a strange yet vast force, which gradually fused with the strings. A five-colored light emerged from behind Princess Zhongli's back, and in a blink of an eye, it had spread to an area of 10 miles in circumference. The natural energies within 1,000 miles around Princess Zhonglu began to fluctuate faintly. A great amount of natural energies rushed into Princess Zhongli's body at an incredible speed like seawater in a huge whirlpool in the deep sea. Princess Zhongli's nascent soul devoured the natural energies and transformed them into her own energy, then kept injecting them into the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither. If it were any other cultivators or immortals who used the zither, as long as they did not possess the cultivation base of 33rd tier heaven immortal, all the energy and immortal energies in their bodies would be drained in an instant. But, by relying on her unique bloodline power, Princess Zhongli's energy was being absorbed by the zither, and at the same time, she was transforming it into new energies and injecting them into the zither. In just a quarter of an hour, the total amount of energy Princess Zhonglu had injected into the zither was equal to all the energies possessed by 10 early-stage nascent divinity cultivators. After waiting for another quarter of an hour, Lao Ai was getting impatient. He shouted sternly, "Little girl, are you still not ready? How long are you going to put on an act?" Princess Zhonglu rolled her eyes and cried out sternly, "Can't wait any longer? Then die." A bolt of lightning darted out from between her brows, and the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither dashed out along with a strange immortal tune. The zither hovered before Princess Zhonglu and shone with a dazzling light. Countless talismans formed from lightning wheeled and danced around the zither like flying phoenixes, producing a deafening rumble of thunder. Clang! A strange, ear-piercing, unpleasant, and indescribable sound rang out. With Princess Zhonglu as the center, a ring of white sonic boom rushed out 1,000 miles in an instant. Along with a loud swooshing noise, the defensive screen of the star-picking city was automatically activated, blocking the sonic boom. After that, all the defensive mechanisms on the entire city wall shattered at the same time, and a large section of the city wall crumbled into pieces. The people in the city were either killed or wounded, and the power of the sonic boom had shattered countless merchants. In that instant, the entire star-picking city turned blood red. That was the result of human bodies exploding. Blood rose into the sky and dyed the entire star-picking city red. Lao Ai, who bore the brunt of the sonic boom, suffered a shock that was thousands of times greater than that of star-picking city. The deafening boom echoed in his spiritual ocean, and his soul was nearly shredded like a dandelion seed in a hurricane. Lao Ai let out a shrill howl. All of his clothes were torn apart, and 7 to 8 large wounds appeared on his body. Large amounts of blood, and even pieces of internal organs sprayed out from those wounds. Lao Ai's body swayed, and his facial muscles squirmed. Suddenly, he transformed into the face of a handsome man. Princess Zhang Li cried out in shock. "You're not Lao Ai? Or you?" Lao Ai let out a shrill howl. Blood spurted out from his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth like fountains. His brain was nearly turned into tofu. He had no idea whether he was still alive or not, but he kept howling. A stream of white mist swooshed out from behind his back, within which the soul of a 30 meters tall white tiger, with a pair of wings on its back, rose into the sky, pouncing towards Princess Zhang Li with an overwhelming intent of killing. The surrounding area quaked abruptly. Once the white tiger showed up, the color of the sky changed, and an inexhaustible intent of killing enveloped the entire area, dispersing all natural energies. Chapter 346. While Princess Zhang Li and Lao Ai were fighting fiercely above the ocean outside star-picking city, in the capital city of Tianli Kingdom, the neighboring country of Gutai dynasty on White Cloud Planet, Lao Ai was fighting valiantly in a bedchamber of Tianli Kingdom's imperial palace. The bedchamber was luxuriously furnished, but the colors were mostly black and gold, giving off a depressing atmosphere. Empress Dowager Ci Hun, the current Empress Dowager who held the actual power of the imperial court, was lying naked on her stomach on the bed. Her face was flushed as she endured wave after wave of attacks from Lao Ai's back, which were as heavy as a mountain and as fast as lightning. Loud slapping noises echoed and echoed in the bedchamber, while Empress Dowager Ci Hun's moans and gasps could be heard coming from the bedchamber. Outside the bedchamber, Madman Shui was sitting steadily on a soft couch, while a few naked and beautiful palace maids were lying limply on the ground, looking at Madman Shui feebly with flushed faces. A petite girl, who looked to be at most 14 years old, had her knees wrapped around Madman Shui's waist, her arms wrapped tightly around his neck, and her body was wriggling up and down on top of Madman Shui's body. The girl had fallen into a semi-conscious state, but her pretty face was filled with obsession and fanaticism. She was moaning in a low voice, her body was shivering and twitching, and strange pink spots were emerging on her skin as well. Madman Shui held tightly on the girl's slender waist with both hands, silently exercising the Great Sun technique taught to him by Lao Ai, extracting a thread of true yin energy from the girl's body and strengthening his own energy. In his dantian, there was already a fist-sized, glinting pinkish ball of energy. Shockingly, he had broken through the peak stage of Xiantian realm, stepping into the realm of Jin Dan human immortal. With the nourishment from the true yin energy extracted from the girls over the past few days, his Jin Dan had reached a certain degree of maturity and was about to turn into a corporeal Jin Dan. Suddenly, a long moan came from the girl who was wriggling on his body. Her petite body twitched a few times, then became limp and coiled around Madman Shui's body. She looked like a serpent that had its spine pulled out, and suddenly, a large amount of sweat broke out from her body. Madman Shui laughed wildly, picked up the girl, and threw her to the ground. After that, he shouted excitedly, "Somebody, help Her Highness take a bath and change her clothes. Invite Princess Yu Lu here so that she can study the supreme immortal technique with Lao Tzu." A few tall and sturdy eunuchs with fierce-looking faces were smiling flatteringly, carrying a young lady dressed in luxurious clothing who looked even more childish than the princess just now. Her face was already pale from fright, and she had long been scared out of her wits. Madman Shui laughed wildly as he grabbed Princess Yu Lu, who was struggling ceaselessly, and forcefully pushed her down onto the soft couch. Amidst the painful cry of a young girl, Madman Shui gasped and groaned, his body moving up and down like a pile driver. In the bedchamber, Empress Dowager Ci Guang gave a feeble cry. Her body was also drenched in sweat as she collapsed onto the couch. Gently, Lao Ai turned Empress Dowager Ci Guang over. With a tender and charming smile on his face, he said softly, "Enrong, do you feel beautiful?" Empress Dowager Ci Guang's name was Enrong. She stared at Lao Ai with an infatuated expression, her hands weakly stroking her snow-white, plump breasts. After a long while, she sighed and said, "Elder brother Lao Ai, Enrong has lived so many years in vain. How could there be such a wonderful thing in the world? Enrong had never thought of this. Compared to elder brother Lao Ai, the late emperor is simply." Lao Ai stuck out his chest complacently, smiled tenderly, and said, "What did you say about that damned emperor? Let alone him, Lao Ai doesn't believe there is any man under the heaven who can defeat Lao Ai." With both hands gently stroking Empress Dowager Ci Guang's body, Lao Ai said coolly, "That troublesome prime minister's house was caught on fire last night, and his entire clan has been burned to death. Now, is there anyone in the imperial court who dares to make things difficult for Enrong?" Empress Dowager Ci Guang gave Lao Ai a charming smile, squeezing her long legs tightly around his waist. She chuckled and said, "Who dares to refute my decree? From today onwards, the Tianli kingdom will be shared by elder brother Lao Ai. Tomorrow I will issue an imperial decree, saying that elder brother Lao Ai is my cousin, a man with the talent to rule the heaven and earth, the pillar that holds up the sky of the Tianli kingdom, and that he will temporarily serve as the regent of the Tianli kingdom." Lao Ai nodded delightfully and said, "Excellent. In the future, when Enrong and I give birth to a child, he will be the ruler of the Tianli kingdom for generations to come." Lao Ai straightened his body and once again entered into Empress Dowager Ci Guang's body. He chuckled and said in a low voice, "I, the pillar that holds up the sky, will spread my seeds throughout the world, turning all the emperors under the heaven into my sons and grandsons. The thing that I failed to achieve in those years, I must make it come true now. How happy will it be to make all the emperors of the kingdoms address me as father?" Empress Dowager Ci Guang had lost her last bit of rationality. She hugged Lao Ai tightly and began to enjoy the pleasure with him once again. A series of slapping noises rang out once again. Not long after that, Empress Dowager Ci Guang let out a moan, rolled her eyes, and fainted. Lao Ai rose to his feet complacently, slowly wiping his body clean with a white handkerchief. Then, served by a few palace maids who were blushing beside him, he put on the imperial robe of the Tianli kingdom's prince. After casually touching and pinching the bodies of these palace maids, Lao Ai's lust was aroused when he looked at the few young and beautiful palace maids. Just as he was about to put them on the bed and have some fun with them, a soft cry suddenly came from the courtyard. "Sect leader, patriarch, we have an urgent matter to report." Lao Ai was taken aback. He waved his hand and drove the few palace maids aside, then strode out of the bedchamber. Madman Shui, who was making Princess Yulu roll her eyes at the entrance of the bedchamber, rose to his feet hastily and stood naked in front of the bedchamber, staring coldly at a few beardless, pale men clad in eunuch outfits. These few men had just arrived at the bedchamber under the lead of a few disciples of Great Sun Sect. Madman Shui did not notice them at first, but he did not expect that they would suddenly call out to Lao Ai. Therefore, Madman Shui had no choice but to stop what he was doing and stand up to receive Lao Ai's order. After walking out of the bedchamber, Lao Ai gave Princess Yulu a look, who lay paralyzed on the soft bed and could not move at all. He nodded at Madman Shui and praised, "Disciple, you have a good eyesight. This girl is full of innate energy, and having sex with her will save you 30 years of laborious cultivation. Disciple has been diligent these few days. In just a few days, you have stepped into the realm of Jindan. Not bad at all." Madman Shui bowed respectfully and said gratefully, "This is all thanks to Master's excellent teaching, and also because of your marvelous technique. It is not laborious at all. Over the past few days, I have doted on 37 princesses of Tianli Kingdom. It is a wonderful thing. How is it laborious?" Lao Ai laughed complacently, nodded his head, and said, "I like what you said. Among all the divine techniques under the heaven, there is no one who can progress faster than us, master and disciple. As long as we have a girl with a good aptitude as our cultivation vessel, our cultivation base will advance at a tremendous pace, and no one can ever compare with us." Patting Madman Shui's shoulder, Lao Ai cast a cold glance at the few eunuchs standing respectfully in the courtyard before the bedchamber and snorted coldly, "What is it? Aren't you keeping an eye on the activity in G City? Why did you leave your post and come here? Upon hearing his words, the few eunuchs in Great Yen Imperial Palace, the secret disciples of Great Sun Sect, dropped to their knees respectfully, gave Lao Ai a few kowtows and said, "Sect Master, Patriarch, we have some shocking news to report to you. This news is too important, and we dared not to neglect it. That's why we came here to report it to you, Patriarch." Lao Ai nodded his head and said in a deep voice, "What is the shocking news? Stand up and tell me." The few eunuchs gave him a few more kowtows, then rose to their feet. Carefully, the eunuch who led the group took out a jade slip, stepped forward and handed it over to Lao Ai. The jade slip was simple and unadorned, carved into the shape of a strange-looking bird. The blade technique was simple and crude, but it contained an extraordinary aura. Lao Ai sent his divine will into the jade slip, and was immediately attracted by the information contained in it. Suddenly, his face flushed red, and he cried out in wild joy, "Excellent! You have all contributed a great merit this time. Everyone will be rewarded handsomely. Quick, quick, follow me to that place and have a look." The information contained in the jade slip was very simple. It was a map of a secret immortal abode on Myriad Immortals' planet, as well as a detailed record of how to get in and out of the restrictive spells. According to the few eunuchs, this jade slip was seized by a secret agent of Great Yan's scouting office from Great Zhao's Zhaowu Palace at a great cost, and was immediately sent back to Great Yen through a secret channel. However, halfway through the journey, it was intercepted by Great Sun Sect's disciples in the Imperial Palace, and all the related people were killed. In the end, the jade slip was personally sent to Lao Ai by these eunuchs. It was a complete map of an ancient secret immortal abode, and a record of how to break through the restrictive spells, which no one had ever discovered before. Needless to say, there must be a lot of good stuff in it. Burning with impatience, Lao Ai was too lazy to pay any attention to the affairs of Tian Le Kingdom. He left a few disciples to take charge of the overall situation, then hurriedly brought Madman Shui and a few eunuchs back to Myriad Immortals' planet through a grand universal teleportation formation. Following the map in the jade slip, Lao Ai brought nearly 100 disciples and stealthily came to the southernmost marshland of Great Yen Dynasty. Without hesitation, he followed the map and went deep into the marshland, going 36,000 miles deep into the marshland, and came to a mountain range that stretched for several tens of thousands of miles in the depths of the marshland. The mountain range here was steep, filled with barren hills and unruly rivers, venomous snakes and bugs, and even some strange creatures that could not be explained with words. The southern marshland of Great Yen Dynasty was the most feared place in the four cardinal directions of Great Yen Dynasty. The Eastern Ocean was vast and boundless, inhabited by countless powerful aquatic clans. The northern snowfield was extremely cold, and the natural environment was extremely harsh. The western Meng Mountains were filled with countless demon clans and barbarians. The southern marshland was a land of mystery, boundless mystery, extremely mysterious and frightening. No one in the entire Great Yen Dynasty knew exactly how large the marshland was, and what exactly was hidden in it. Following the map, Lao Ai brought nearly 100 disciples and searched in this mountain range for a few days. Finally, they found a lofty mountain surrounded by 9 small mountain ranges that meandered like dragons, with steep slopes that looked like screens. The lofty mountain was bare and barren, and not even a single strand of natural energy could be found within the circumference of 100 miles. There was only a faint, piercingly cold aura that made one's heart shiver. Staring at the mysterious and bizarre lofty mountain, Lao Ai gave his surroundings a cautious glance. He could not make up his mind whether he should enter the mountain and explore it. But someone had made the decision for him. 2 eunuchs standing behind him took out a golden talisman and waved it in the air. Immediately, a clump of golden cloud enveloped Lao Ai and the several dozens of disciples around him, including Madman Shui. Then, with a flash, they were brought to the foot of the lofty mountain. Suddenly, the barren lofty mountain that looked like a steamed bun lit up, and a large number of runes began to emerge from it. An enormous pressure came pressing down on Lao Ai, causing his knees to go weak, and he was pinned to the ground, unable to move even a little bit. All the disciples around him were howling and howling miserably as their bodies were crushed into pieces by the sudden pressure. Chapter 347. Help me, Master. A terrible pressure came pressing down from all directions. Madman Shui felt as if he was a bean that had gone soft after soaking in a millstone, and was about to be crushed into powder by the hard and heavy millstone. Cracking noises could be heard coming from his bones, while countless bloody wounds opened up on his skin. A large amount of blood gushed out through his torn muscles and blood vessels. In just a blink of an eye, he had turned into a man of blood. Lao Ai, who was also thrown into a very awkward situation by the sudden pressure, gave a muffled snort and grabbed Madman Shui's hand. A clump of pinkish mist sprayed out from Lao Ai's body, firmly shielding him and Madman Shui. Then, a sweet moan rang out, as 9 pearls the size of a human head shot out from the top of Lao Ai's head, emitting a dazzling light that shielded Lao Ai and his disciples, who had been killed by 7 to 8 of them. Soft giggles kept coming out from the 9 pearls. Silhouettes flashed across the air, and 9 beautiful girls walked out from the pearls. Their bodies were graceful, and every single movement they made was filled with a boundless charm. These 9 girls looked very young, with pure and innocent faces. At first glance, one could tell that they were young ladies from influential clans who were not familiar with the affairs of the world. However, they were very tall, and their bodies were very sexy. Their naked bodies were even more attractive than all the popular girls in the brothels under the heaven. The 9 girls took a few steps around Lao Ai. Suddenly, one of them chuckled, clenched her fists, and threw a powerful punch forward. A beam of pinkish light shot out, shaking the void and producing a loud boom. A large sheet of flame exploded, leaving dozens of cracks on the ground under Lao Ai and the others' feet. Giggles lingered in the air as the 9 girls transformed into countless afterimages and flew all over the sky. Wherever they went, countless snow-white punches smashed into the surrounding void, shaking the heaven and earth. The surrounding mountain ridges were undulating, with some rocks crumbling and hilltops falling off. There were also many large cracks on the ground, with pale yellow earthen mist and millstone-sized rocks flying up into the sky. Lao Ai had protected himself and his disciples with the 9 pearls, and used the 9 girls to attack the restrictive spells in the surroundings. Then, he pulled Madman Shui to his feet and stared coldly at the few eunuchs who were hovering in midair several tens of miles away. Good, Lao Ai has been a villain all his life, but I never thought that I would be tricked by someone today. When did you betray Great Sun Sect? The few eunuchs bowed respectfully at Lao Ai. The eunuch who led the group shouted at Lao Ai in a deep voice, "We have never belonged to Great Sun Sect." It's just that, Patriarch, in order to expand your power in the Imperial Palace, you unintentionally took us in as your disciples. Over the years, we, the crippled men, have been able to be reborn, and that is all thanks to you, Patriarch. You bunch of ungrateful bastards. Lao Ai stared at the few eunuchs with a gloomy face, nodded slowly and said, "If I don't die today, I'll definitely wipe out your 9 clans." Amidst a loud boom, the 9 girls who were fleeing in all directions suddenly joined forces and struck a certain spot in the void in front of them. 9 fair and slender fists hit a certain spot in the void almost at the same time. Suddenly, a large number of runes exploded from the top of the mountain that was emitting a blinding light. Huge rocks were torn to pieces, and the tremendous pressure that came pressing down from the surroundings was reduced by at least 30%. Lao Ai let out a loud laugh, then casually pointed a finger at them. 9 drops of blood flew out from his fingertips, and the 9 girls laughed joyfully at the same time. Hastily, each of them caught a drop of Lao Ai's blood and swallowed it. Suddenly, their bodies changed. From the enchanting and beautiful girls just a moment ago, their skin and flesh turned transparent like glass, revealing their pinkish bones with a faint golden hue. Lao Ai smiled faintly and said in a cold voice, "Trying to trap me with a mere restrictive spell of magnetic force? All of you are delusional. Pink skeletons are nothing but things that will fade away in the mortal world. The heavenly Tao is desolate, and only one's heart is as firm as a vajra." As Lao Ai's voice rang out, the 9 girls sat down cross-legged, with 3 flawless, white lotus thrones emerging out of nowhere under them. They performed lotus incantation gestures with their hands and recited the Vajra exorcism mantra. Quickly, their skin and flesh melted into a transparent liquid and fused into their bones. Before long, 9 pinkish skeletons with a faint golden hue sat cross-legged on the 9 lotus thrones. Not only did they not look ferocious or frightening, but there was a sense of sacredness in their evilness, and a hint of cuteness in their dignified manner. The pink skeletons looked like lotus roots that had just come out of the water, fresh and tender, as if water could be squeezed out of them with just a pinch. Lao Ai gave a long and sonorous cry and cried out, "Wheel of delight, the great joy of the heavens." 9 white lotus thrones gracefully rolled up, firmly wrapping the 9 skeletons in the white lotus petals. A chanting echoed out as the 9 lotus thrones soared up into the sky, dancing rapidly in the air, then suddenly transformed into a sheet of hazy white light that drifted down from the sky. 9 pearls flew up into the sky, emanating a solemn and sacred aura, and fused into the sheet of white light in the sky. About 3 to 5 breaths later, the white light faded away, revealing a wheel, about 63 feet in diameter, pink in color, with 9 layers on the inside and outside, in which countless heavenly demons were dancing gracefully, heavenly maidens were sprinkling petals, and an endless number of fairies were dancing gracefully in the air. It hovered gracefully behind Lao Ai's back. A pinkish lotus throne flew out from the middle of the wheel and slowly fell under Lao Ai's feet, carrying him up into the sky and merging with the huge wheel. Every time Lao Ai breathed, the countless heavenly demons, fairies, and fairies would laugh joyfully together. Chi-Chi made his move. When Wu-Chi looked carefully into the wheel, he could see a boundless miraculous realm of joy, as if he had traveled through all the worlds in just a blink of an eye and seen countless scenes of great joy and happiness. If it were an ordinary cultivator, with just a single glance, his soul would have been sucked into the wheel and completely melted into the boundless miraculous realm. With his long black hair fluttering behind his head, Lao Ai sat on the lotus throne with a solemn expression and said coolly, "Extreme Yin gives birth to Yang, and extreme Yang gives birth to Yin. The ultimate of the evil Tao is not the fiend, but the Buddha who shares the same body with the fiend. I, Lao Ai, have comprehended the miraculous principles of the heaven and earth with the art of delight. In the future, what I will attain is not the Tao of heaven immortal, but the Arhat of delight." A pink and translucent relic flew out from between Lao Ai's brows, emanating a boundless bright light and emanating an immeasurable pressure, hovering right in front of him. Lao Ai gently pointed his finger at the relic, and a ring of transparent divine will that could be seen with naked eyes burst out from it, sweeping across all the mountains and rivers within 10,000 miles in a blink of an eye. Wherever the divine will swept across, every single blade of grass, every single insect, and every single fish was under the observation of Lao Ai's Dharma eyes. Lao Ai let out a long laugh, then turned to look at a mountain ridge behind the few dumbfounded eunuchs and said coolly, "You Qian, you bitch! Get the hell out here right now. Is it your Yu Academy who is scheming against Great Sun Sect? Wait until this king captures you alive. This king will make you, an old virgin who can't get married, beg for death but can't get it. Get the hell out here, take off all your clothes and lie on the ground obediently, waiting for my favor. Then I'll spare your entire clan." The few eunuchs had a panicked look on their faces. They exchanged a glance, then suddenly backed away at the same time. Lao Ai sneered, shook his head, breathed out a long sigh and said, good children, how can you still be alive after betraying me? Exterminate." When he uttered the word, exterminate, the bodies of the few eunuchs suddenly froze. After that, they vanished without a trace. Lao Ai's enormous willpower, the willpower of Buddhist League, and not the divine will of Tao League, had wiped out all traces of the few eunuchs' existence in a blink of an eye. Naturally, their fleshly bodies and souls had vanished along with it, leaving no trace that they were once alive. Madman Shui and the other disciples of Great Sun Sect could only remember these few eunuchs. It was because Lao Ai's divine ability and magical power were too weak. If it were a real Buddha who used this method to kill someone, the memory of the victim would be completely wiped out from the hearts and souls of all living beings under the heaven and earth. Apart from those almighty experts who were on par with the Buddha, no one would be able to remember them. That was the truly mysterious and boundless divine ability that ruled over everything. Compared to a Buddha like that, Lao Ai was nothing more than a drop of water in a vast ocean, far inferior to the real Buddha. A soft clap rang out. From behind the mountain where Lao Ai pointed and scolded just now, Yu Chanqian walked out with a smile on her face and a young man who looked valiant and extraordinary. Yu Chanqian chuckled and said, "You are indeed worthy of being the sect leader of Great Sun Sect. May I ask what kind of cultivation techniques Senior Lao Ai is practicing?" Lao Ai rolled his eyes and casually thrust out his palm. A huge and hazy hand that could overturn the heavens gently fell down from the sky. It was densely covered with countless runes, glinting with a strong light and emanating a tremendous magnetic force. When the huge hand lightly touched the mountain that imprisoned Lao Ai and his company, it immediately turned into a clump of dust and drifted away in the air, leaving behind a huge palm print that measured several dozens of miles in circumference and 1 mile deep into the ground. Lao Ai snorted coldly and said coolly, "Cut the crap. Yu Chanqian, strip off all your clothes and lie on the ground yourself. I'll only play with you, not kill you. If I do it myself, I'll strip off all your clothes, every single member of your Yu clan, and every single member of your Yu Academy. I'll kill every single one of them." Yu Chanqian's expression changed instantly, turning extremely venomous. With a livid face, she glared at Lao Ai and said with a cold grin, "You?" Lao Ai rose to his feet, took off his long robe and pants, revealing his erect lower body. Grinning hideously, he said, "You don't believe me? Why don't you give it a try?" Yu Chanqian's livid face turned purple with anger. No matter how ruthless and cunning she was still a virgin girl. An old demon like Lao Ai was an extremely shameless and shameless man. How could she possibly defeat Lao Ai by playing with such an evil trick? Covering her face with her sleeve, Yu Chanqian cried out sternly, "Elder brother Hada, I'll have to trouble you. Once Lao Ai is killed, I'll replace him and control Great Sun Sect. With that, the entire Great Yen dynasty will be in my pocket." The valiant young man chuckled and said, "Well, it's been a long time since I've exercised my hands and feet. Let's see what kind of tricks these people have up their sleeves." Yu Hada breathed out a sigh, smiled and said, "Although these people are born from the same origin as us, they are indeed different from our clan members. Their cunning tricks are top-notch. Chanqian, those seniors of yours have returned to their clan, and now, they are the pillars of the clan. Chanqian, your current methods of killing are also decisive. I'm sure you'll have a bright future ahead of me. I hope you can take good care of me in the future." Yu Chanqian smiled faintly, nodded at Yu Hada and said, "Elder brother, you're being too courteous. We still don't know what will happen in the future. But, since you've shown your face in front of Lao Ai today, I can't let them leave this place alive." Yu Hada smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry, Chanqian. If I can't kill him, how can I easily show my face in public?" Yu Hada smiled confidently and proudly. Suddenly, a dark cloud soared up into the sky from the top of his head. A thunderbolt flashed through the dark cloud, and a strange beast soul, standing 100 feet tall, with a black skin and 1 leg, and a pair of purple-blue horns on its head, constantly unleashing thunderbolts that stretched for tens of thousands of feet. Lao Ai's face fell instantly. He cried out with a stern voice, "The soul of the ancient thunder beast, Kueox?" Yu Hada grinned coldly and did not answer. Abruptly, he merged his body with the soul of Kueox, transforming into a clump of thunderbolt and thrusting towards Lao Ai. Lao Ai snorted coldly. He recited a scripture in silence, then flipped both palms. A pinkish divine ray shot out soundlessly from his palms. Chapter 348. Above the East Ocean of Great Yen, Princess Zhonglu was carrying Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui, who were limp and had their faces flushed. She was staring coldly at the winged beast soul of the white tiger, who was rushing down towards her. She took a deep breath, and with every breath she took, an enormous amount of water element energy would fuse into her body, turning into pure and powerful energies that circulated through her entire body. Wisps of five-colored light kept rushing out from Princess Zhongli's body, being absorbed into the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither, which had its glow dimmed down suddenly. 4 cultivators and heaven immortals below the cultivation base of 33rd tier heaven immortal. Once they used the zither, all their energy would be sucked dry by it. However, Princess Zhongli had a unique physique, which allowed her to replenish her energies at any time she wanted. As a result, even though she had exercised the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither with all her strength, she still had enough energy to continue supplying energies to the zither. Gradually, the zither's strings lit up, and numerous runes drifted out from it, slowly wheeling and dancing around the strings. After placing Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui on the cloud, Princess Zhongli held the zither with one hand and pressed her other hand on the strings. Stealthily, she took out a few spirit pills concocted especially for the core disciples of White Cloud Immortal Sect, and swallowed them. Immediately, more energies were produced in her body, rushing into the zither through her meridians. The white tiger soul let out a deafening roar, then shot towards Princess Zhonglu in a beam of white light. A 5-colored divine gleam flickered in Princess Zhongli's eyes. In that very moment, she had once again entered into a profound and unpredictable state of enlightenment. Although the white tiger was approaching menacingly and at an extremely fast speed, in Princess Zhongli's eyes, its speed was extremely slow and sluggish, as if it was approaching her bit by bit. Princess Zhongli could vaguely see the ripples in the void around the white tiger, caused by its enormous power. She could also see the countless profound runes and glows shrouding the white tiger's body. It was a very short moment, but for Princess Zhongli, it was a very long moment. The white tiger's killing aura forced back all the heaven and earth spirit chi in the air, but the ocean below was boundless, and the water attribute spirit chi was endless. The huge amount of water attribute spirit chi kept pouring into Princess Zhongli's body from afar, turning into rolling Zhenyuan and merging into the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither. Activating the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither in the realm of enlightenment, Princess Zhongli's divine sense gradually came into contact with that irascible, restless, and even slightly tyrannical artifact spirit within the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither. Just like how Jing Ku assassinated the Emperor of Qin years ago, the item spirit of this zither was filled with a brutal aura, as if it would rather perish together with the enemy. It was unknown where the heaven immortal who crafted this zither found such a supreme-grade item spirit. Gradually, the connection between Princess Zhonglu and the item spirit deepened, and a desperate aura began to emanate from her body, as if she would rather die than live in dishonor. A faint blood-red gleam shone from her eyes. Slowly, Princess Zhongli clenched the zither strings with her fingers and pulled them, aiming at the incoming white tiger. The man who impersonated Lao AI was staggering and flying in the air a few miles away, as if he was drunk. The strike from the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither had not only left a terrible wound on his body, it had also severely wounded his soul, and even his white tiger soul was severely damaged. What was even worse was that his eardrums were broken, and some fine structures in his ear canals were shattered by the tremendous sound wave, which directly affected his balance. His vision turned dark, and his divine will could not work. He could not even keep the balance of his body, and his fleshly body was severely wounded. Panicked and frightened, Lao AI had no idea how to deal with the situation. He forgot to control his beast soul, and just let it pounce towards Princess Zhonglu by instinct. However, in the way of beast warriors, the beast soul had to fight together with the soul of its host in order to unleash the tremendous power it had when it was still alive. Without the help of the host soul, the beast soul alone could only control less than 1/1000th of the power it had when it was still alive. Facing the white tiger soul, which was getting closer and closer, Princess Zhongli calmly locked her eyes on it. She clenched the zither strings with her fingers, and the sharp and powerful strings cut Princess Zhongli's fingers. Drops of blood flowed down the strings and fell onto the zither. The zither absorbed all the blood, and gradually, Princess Zhonglu and the zither had a connection of blood and soul. When the white tiger's soul was less than 1,000 feet away from her, Princess Zhonglu gently loosened the strings. Clang. Once again, an extremely unpleasant sound rang out. A white, cone-shaped sonic boom shot out from the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither, enveloping the huge white tiger beast's soul within it. Just now, when Princess Zhonglu unleashed her full-strength attack, the sonic boom unleashed by the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither rushed out in all directions at the same time. As a result, the powerful offensive force was greatly dispersed and did not cause any fatal blow to Lao AI. But this time, Princess Zhonglu had learned how to concentrate the sound wave attack from Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither. She compressed the white sound wave into a several hundred feet thick pillar of sound wave that shot straight ahead, hitting the white tiger beast's soul precisely. As the power was compressed, the amount of energy Princess Zhonglu injected in this short period of time was less than 1% of the previous attack. However, as the sound waves were concentrated in a straight line, the power was a few times stronger than the attack Lao AI suffered just now. A beast roar rose into the sky. The zither had the magical effect of attacking souls. Struck by the white sonic boom, the white tiger soul's body blurred and nearly disintegrated in the air. A large number of spell symbols and streams of light flickered inside the white tiger's body. Suddenly, the dim glow on all the spell symbols dimmed, and a few of them were nearly extinguished on the spot. The white tiger's body trembled violently, and a big half of the pair of fleshy wings on its back exploded. The white tiger's soul let out a sad roar, barely stabilized its body, and continued dashing towards Princess Zhonglu. Right at this moment, Lao AI was hit by the sonic boom as well. His legs, arms, and a large piece of skin and flesh on his chest were shattered by the rapid sonic boom. He let out a miserable howl and shouted, "White tiger, come back! Protect your master!" The white tiger threw its head back and let out a long roar. Its huge claws were less than 3 inches away from Princess Zhongli's delicate neck. It threw its head back and let out a long roar, then abruptly transformed into a beam of white light and shot back, fusing with Lao AI's body. Lao AI threw his head back and let out a tiger roar. Suddenly, his body expanded by a few times, reaching the height of 50 feet. His muscles swelled up, and a faint white gleam could be seen flickering under his skin, emanating a cold and sharp aura. There was also a pressure that no one dared to look directly at him. His arms and legs, which were shattered by the zither melody, were reborn along with a white beam that flashed abruptly. Lao AI waved his arms, threw his head back and let out a long and wild roar. As a result, a stream of blood sprayed out from his mouth, and his body trembled, nearly falling into the ocean. The 2 attacks from the zither melody had seriously wounded him. Even though he had regrown his limbs with the power of the beast's soul, he had consumed too much of his prime energy. "Little girl, you're going to die. Yu Hetian, swear that I'll torture." Before Yu Hetian could finish his curse while gnashing his teeth, a large iron hammer, the size of a small house, came whistling from behind him, smashing forcefully on the back of his head. It was unknown what material was used to forge this hammer, as it was extremely hard. Apart from its hardness, it was extremely heavy as well. Judging from its size, one could tell that it was definitely not light. The heavy blow caught Yu Hetian off guard and caused the back of his head to cave in. His eyeballs nearly popped out from his eye sockets. His tongue stretched out 3 inches long, spraying a large amount of saliva and blood several hundred feet away. After being struck twice by the Five Thunders' soul-shattering zither, which was a 33rd grade immortal item, his injuries were extremely serious. Dizzy and deafened, he did not notice that there was an enemy coming from his back, and it was a very powerful enemy. Yu Hetian was knocked flying away by the hammer, coughing out mouthfuls of blood as he turned his head around in a sorry state. Catfish Flood Dragon, who had transformed into a body of over 100 feet tall, had a huge catfish head, and was enshrouded in rolling dark clouds. She was carrying the black hammer, which had a shape similar to that used by blacksmiths in a blacksmith's shop, the size of a small house. She grinned widely at Yu Hetian. Saliva was trickling down from the corner of her mouth, and she said with a muffled voice, "Zi Xian is my good sister. How dare you hit her? Is my hammer delicious? I think your flesh must be very delicious. It's smooth and tender." After being nourished by the white tiger soul's energy, Yu Hetian's skin was indeed smooth and tender, like the finest mutton fat jade. Catfish Flood Dragon, who was very experienced in eating human flesh, could tell with just one glance that he was a good man who tasted pretty good, and was the best among all human flesh. Therefore, her saliva was dripping down from her mouth. Yu Hetian had a severe concussion, and had no idea what time it was today, and no idea who he was. He shook his head, pointed his finger at Catfish Flood Dragon, and cursed furiously, "Evildoer! You! How dare you hurt me? You're dead." Before Yu Hetian could finish his words, a tens of miles thick water column suddenly shot up from the bottom of the ocean and smashed viciously onto his body. Yu Hetian howled miserably as he was pushed over 100 miles up into the sky by the water column. After that, blood was seen splattering in all directions, and a three-toothed harpoon was seen sticking out from his buttocks. While howling miserably, he tumbled down from the sky. The water column crumbled with a boom, and a heavy rain immediately poured down from the ocean within 100 miles in circumference. Lord Xiansheng suddenly appeared amidst the water column. He was holding a three-toothed harpoon in his left hand, pointing it at Yu Hetian, who was falling down from the sky, and snapped, "How dare you lay your hands on my sister-in-law in my territory? You're going to die today. I'm going to chop you into pieces and give them to my men." The water column just now was a trick created by Lord Xiansheng, who had rushed here after hearing the news. Hiding in the water column, he casually thrust the harpoon into Yu Hetian's crotch. Now, only less than 3 feet of the 18 feet long three-toothed harpoon was exposed. It was obvious how deep the harpoon had gone into Yu Hetian's body. Howling and howling miserably, Yu Hetian grabbed the harpoon from his buttocks and howled, "Despicable! Shameless! Despicable! Filthy! You bunch of evildoers!" Having been stabbed in such an embarrassing spot, Yu Hetian was so ashamed that he nearly wanted to commit suicide. If this were to spread out, he would no longer be able to show his face in the future. Lord Xiansheng gave a strange laugh, shook his head and said, "Despicable? Despicable? Shameless? There is a barb on the harpoon. Please don't pull it out, as there is a deadly poison on it. Please." Before his voice could fade away, Yu Hetian had already pulled the harpoon out forcefully. In the end, another miserable howl rang out. Yu Hetian pulled the harpoon forcefully, pulling it out from his lower body along with a large intestine. The intestine had turned black, green, blue, and purple. Sure enough, there were barbs on it, and it was laced with deadly poison. Furthermore, it was not just one type of poison. The pain made Yu Hetian feel like he was about to die. He could no longer fuse with his white tiger beast soul. Both of their souls separated abruptly, and the white tiger beast soul reappeared behind his back. All of a sudden, a silver lotus came shooting over, from within which came the divine flame of order, 30 feet tall and as thick as a water tank, wrapping around the white tiger beast soul and burning it. Princess Zhang Li pinched her fingers and controlled the silver lotus to trap the white tiger beast soul. She kept opening her mouth and spraying out streams of 5-colored auspicious clouds, making the divine flame of order burn even more vigorously. The pain made Yu Hetian howl and howl miserably. His body twitched violently as he fell to the ground, crying out at the top of his voice, "You can't kill me! I'm the son of Markijian, the human emperor. You can't kill me because if you do, you are going against the heavenly Tao." Before his voice could fade away, Catfish Flood Dragon had already rushed forward, grabbed Yu Hetian up, and swallowed him whole without even washing him. Gulp. Catfish Flood Dragon praised. "Delicious." Suddenly, a beam of jade light shot out from Catfish Flood Dragon's mouth, from within which came a stern voice, "Who dares to kill my beloved son?" A vague fist shot out from the jade light, thrusting straight towards Catfish Flood Dragon's chest. Chapter 349. Heavenly Tao? Princess Zhongli snorted disdainfully at Yu Hetian's words. The purple clear divine flame on the silver lotus converged inwards. The white tiger beast soul let out a shrill howl, turned into countless pure white fluorescent lights, and shattered into pieces. Following the secret method taught by Wu Qi, Princess Zhongli hurriedly waved her hand at those white fluorescent lights. Immediately, a white waterfall rushed straight into her palm and was absorbed into her spiritual sea, merging with her nascent soul. The essence of the soul of this white tiger beast soul was extremely powerful. After it was refined by the divine flame of order, it broke down into its essence particles, which made Princess Zhongli's soul grow stronger at an incredible speed. Gradually, even her nascent soul could no longer withstand such a rapid increase. A strange transformation, in which a quantitative change gave rise to a qualitative change, was quietly taking place in her nascent soul. Princess Zhongli's nascent soul quivered slightly. Then, a wisp of golden nascent soul quietly gushed out of her nascent soul, transforming into a hazy silhouette hovering in her spiritual ocean. But before Princess Zhongli could rejoice over the great benefit she had gained, a jade-colored beam of light shot out from Catfish Flood Dragon's mouth, which was the fist. Fist winds vibrated, and the surrounding void froze. An aura of toughness, yet gentleness, like a supreme-grade precious jade had enveloped Catfish Flood Dragon, making her feel like a bug sealed in ice, unable to move even a little bit. That blurry fist shadow was about to hit her body. In the blink of an eye, Lord Xianxing gave a long hiss and transformed into a horned dragon, lashing out with his tail. The air within several tens of feet around Catfish Flood Dragon exploded like crystals, shattering the aura that had sealed all her movements. The Catfish Flood Dragon shuddered and came to her senses. Without saying a word, she immediately transformed back to her true form and exerted all her strength to make her body bigger and bigger. In the blink of an eye, she had transformed into a huge catfish, measuring over 10 miles long. Her entire body was covered with pitch-black dragon scales, and the 2 dragon horns on her head were extremely eye-catching. Under her grayish-white belly, 4 dragon claws were stirring up clouds, smoke, and lightning. Surrounded by mist, she let out a deep roar, and also used her huge fish tail to fiercely whip the fist shadow. With a loud bang, the fist shadow dissipated. Catfish Flood Dragon's nearly 1 mile long tail exploded into pieces, causing her flesh and bones to splatter like a rainstorm. A great amount of blood gushed out from the broken part of her tail and fell into the ocean below, dyeing the water red. Catfish Flood Dragon burped, then let out a painful cry. "Didn't I just eat a human? Why did you punch me?" "I, your grandaunt, have eaten many people." The jade-colored light was still floating in the air when the voice shouted, How dare you? You killed my son and even ate him. You are audacious and out of control. You must die. No matter what, you must die today. Even if you are at the ends of the earth, in the most remote corner of universal heavenly galaxy, you must die today. The jade-colored light spread out abruptly, and vaguely, 2 huge palms could be seen flickering amidst the light. The 2 huge palms grabbed the void and forcefully tore it apart. The void vibrated and even showed signs of shattering. However, it seemed that the strength of the 2 huge palms was not enough to tear the void. Even though Princess Zhongli and the others could hear the man gnashing his teeth and panting with great effort, the void only vibrated and showed no sign of shattering. Princess Zhongli retracted the silver lotus. While exercising her cultivation technique to absorb the enormous soul power of the white tiger soul, she pointed her finger and said, "This man is using the technique of soul attachment. He has hidden a fist force and a thread of spirit will in Yu Hetian's soul. Once Yu Hetian is killed, the fist force will explode, and he will be able to sense the birth of his son. He does not have a very strong overall strength, so it seems it will be a little difficult for him to tear the void and come here directly." When a person with the cultivation base of heaven immortal or above used the technique of soul attachment and left a thread of spirit will on someone, when the man was killed, the thread of spirit will would be equivalent to a coordinate, allowing the person to use some divine abilities or techniques. If the person had the cultivation base of 33rd tier heaven immortal or above, by relying on the coordinate, he would be able to tear the void directly, or come here personally, or attack the enemy near the coordinate. However, to tear the void and come here personally or attack the enemy, not only did it require the cultivation base of 33rd tier heaven immortal or above, but the distance between the coordinate and the target was also a problem. The further the distance, the more energy it would take to tear the void open. However, it seemed that the man in the jade-colored light did not have enough energy to tear the void and come here directly. From White Cloud Immortal Sex Scripture Pavilion, Princess Zhonglu had learned many methods about the realm of heaven immortals. She knew about the technique of soul attachment, and she also knew about the technique of tearing the void open and coming here directly. Therefore, looking at the pair of trembling hands in the jade-colored light that were tearing the void, Princess Zhonglu could not help but giggle and said, "He is just wasting his effort. Judging from the look of it, his cultivation base is not that strong. Otherwise, that punch just now would have killed Catfish Flood Dragon." Shaking her head and wagging her tail, Catfish Flood Dragon transformed back into her human form. She clenched her jaws and growled, "I don't care who he is. Since he is here, I've eaten him. I've eaten him. My tail. How much time and effort will it take me to grow it back?" Even though she was a demon dragon, Catfish Flood Dragon was, after all, a girl, and she was particular about her body shape. It was too ugly for her to suddenly transform into a bald dragon. Catfish Flood Dragon's eyes turned bloodshot, and she clenched her teeth so tightly that a loud cracking noise could be heard. The man in the jade-colored light roared furiously as well. "Tian, that useless thing. Where did he go? Why did he spend so much effort? Did he really run to the ends of the earth? You bunch of vile creatures, what is the name of your planet?" Catfish Flood Dragon was taken aback. She shook her head and shut her mouth. Lord Xianxing twitched his lips and grinned coldly as he turned to look at Princess Zhonglu. Princess Zhonglu clasped her hands behind her back, rolled her eyes, and said with a sigh, "You don't know where your son died? That's great. Why should I tell you which planet we are on? So that you can come here to settle the score with us? Do you think we are stupid or stupid? It doesn't matter if you are stupid, but don't ever think that we are as stupid as you, okay?" The divine ray of 5 colors rippled abruptly. Princess Zhonglu pointed her finger out, and the ray of 5 colors behind her abruptly transformed into 5 sword energies that towered into the sky, thrusting viciously toward the jade-colored light along with a jarring noise of air ripping. As long as the jade-colored light was destroyed, the man behind it would lose the spatial coordinate. No matter how strong the man was, he would not be able to find Myriad Immortal's planet directly. As for how to deal with the aftermath, Princess Zhongli's brows knitted into a tight frown. It was indeed a difficult thing to deal with. Who was the man behind Yu Hetian? Marquis Jian, who served the human emperor. What was his background? Someone must have known that Yu Hetian was here, and his father, Marquis Jian, would soon receive the news. Once he came here personally, how was he going to deal with the aftermath? Yu Hetian? Princess Zhongli said in a low voice. Great Yan Dynasty, Yu Hetian? Yu Chanxian, you bitch. A ferocious gleam flickered in Princess Zhongli's eyes as she cried out fiercely, "I'll definitely slaughter your entire clan." While shouting, the 5-colored sword beams slashed viciously at the jade-colored light, ripping it into pieces. Countless jade-colored cold beams drifted in the air, and among them, a thumb-sized jade-colored light flickered and flickered. Like a living creature, it tried to flee. Princess Zhonglu snorted coldly. She performed a strange incantation gesture, and suddenly, a thick layer of dark mist covered her forehead and lips. Then, she recited a few strange incantations under her breath that sounded like the roars of ghosts. Abruptly, a few clumps of ghost flames emerged from around her. She stretched her hand out and grabbed at those ghost flames. Accompanied by shrill ghost howls, the dark green ghost flames converged on Princess Zhongli's fingers, which were glinting with a phosphorescent glow. With a gentle tap of her finger, the ghost flames transformed into a bizarre rune the size of a red date, twisting and twitching like the face of a ghost. It was shot out from Princess Zhongli's fingertip, hitting the jade-colored light with great force. That jade-colored light was the thread of spirit sense left behind by Yu Hetian's father, Marquis Jian, in his soul. The rune of ghost flames unleashed by Princess Zhonglu was the witch ghost curse, passed down from her mother's bloodline. It was a curse that originated from the ancient times, and was used by the ancestors when they were fighting against the evil ghosts. It was the cruelest, fiercest, and most ruthless curse technique. Princess Zhonglu had encountered many fortuitous encounters, and her fleshly body and bloodline had been cleansed by Wu Qi with the innate energy. Vaguely, her body now possessed the innate will. Therefore, she was able to obtain more and more strange and mystic techniques from her bloodline. When the rune fused with the jade-colored light, a shrill and miserable howl came out from the jade-colored light. Marquis Jian cried out at the top of his voice, "Ignorant junior, how dare you use the ghost curse technique to trap me? How dare you? Somebody bring the grand." Before Marquis Jian could finish his words, the jade-colored light suddenly exploded into pieces, and the voice of Marquis Jian could no longer be heard. Princess Zhonglu clapped her hands, pulled out 3 communication jade slips from under her sleeve, and hastily told Marquis Jian everything that happened here. After that, she quickly crushed all 3 jade slips at the same time. Followed by a series of popping noise, 3 extremely faint streams of smoke flashed across the air and quickly disappeared without leaving a trace. Princess Zhonglu said coldly, "Lord Xianxing, please help me ask Old Dragon King to bring his demon army to Ji City. I want to wash Yu Academy with blood." Gently tilting her chin up, Princess Zhonglu sneered and said, "Regardless of whether this Yu Hetian is related to Yu Qianqian or not, how could she be so shameless to marry Wu Qi? Because of this, I'm going to punish her with the crime of having her entire clan beheaded. This Yu Hetian must be Yu Qianqian's accomplice. All of you have to testify for me, as he personally confessed that he is Yu Qianqian's distant cousin. How dare he plot against me? This is a treason." Catfish Flood Dragon stared blankly at Princess Zhonglu. She had no idea why she was so sure that Yu Hetian was related to Yu Qianqian. Lord Xianxing smiled faintly, nodded his head and said, "I'll go ask my father for help now. Princess, please come to Ji City at once." Princess Zhonglu narrowed her eyes and nodded her head lightly. She pulled up Jiang Xian and Jiang Rui, and without giving them any antidote or healing, she transformed into a 5-colored beam and rushed into Star-Picking City, returning to Ji City through a teleportation formation. Yu Qianqian, even if Wu Qi can have so many wives and concubines, he can never marry an old woman like you. I'll definitely wipe out your entire Yu Academy today. Chapter 350. In the Great Southern Marsh, the pink divine ray emitted by Lao AI collided with the thunderbolt transformed from Yu Heda. The divine ray emitted by Lao AI was soft and gentle, like the tears of a passionate woman. It came with a very strong ecstatic and bone-corroding bizarre force, intertwining with the thunderbolt inch by inch like a cup of aqua regia with honey added to it, slowly eroding and melting the power of the thunderbolt. On the other hand, the thunderbolt transformed from Yu Heda was fierce, brutal, and tough. Every time it flickered, it was as if countless bombs were about to explode. However, after being enveloped by the pink divine ray, Yu Heda managed to unleash 30 thunderbolts in a row within 100,000th of a second, trying to make them explode. But, every time before the power of the thunderbolt reached the critical point, the power of the thunderbolt would be drawn away by the pink divine ray, and failed to explode. The thunderbolt and the pink ray collided and tangled with each other in midair, producing deep, muffled booms that kept ringing out. Lao AI sat cross-legged on the pink lotus throne with a solemn expression, his hands forming various Buddhist incantation gestures at an incredible speed. While unleashing an endless stream of pink divine ray to fight against Yu Heda, he smiled at Yu Qianqian, who had an unsightly expression on her face, and said, "Young miss of Yu clan, where did you find such a wild man? Are you really that confident that you can subdue him? TSK, you really don't know the immensity of the heaven and earth. You have no idea that most things in this world do not go as one wishes." Not allowing Yu Qianqian to answer, Lao AI flicked his wrist and unleashed 3 pink thunderbolts. He chuckled and said, This wild man does look mighty and tall, but too bad that he is useless. Do you think he can satisfy young Miss Yu? I heard that young Miss Yu once offered her body to Wu Qi, but he rejected her. Is there a need for you to do that? I'm not afraid of anyone. Even if he is a vicious old virgin like you, Lao Ai is still interested in spending a night with you. 3 thunderbolts smashed forcefully onto the thunderbolt transformed from Yu Hada. The pinkish thunderbolts exploded softly, and the sound of each explosion sounded like the soft moaning of a beautiful woman. The melancholic moaning that could shake one's soul and corrode one's bones could really make one's heart go soft and his internal organs itch. All the meridians and bones in his body felt like a snow lion that had encountered a blazing sun. They could not help but soften and lose all their strength. Yu Hada, who had transformed into a thunderbolt and was desperately charging forward, had his body turned stiff. Even though he was protected by the fierce and pure Yang thunderbolt, he was still affected by the moaning, causing his spirit to drop by a large margin. Yu Hada bellowed furiously, "What evil magic is this? How can you be so shameless?" On the other side, when Yu Qianqian heard Lao Ai's flirting words, she could not help but berate him furiously, "Lao Ai, you are really shameless." Lao Ai was smiling, as he did not take Yu Qianqian's words to heart. He chuckled and said, "Shameless?" In the future, he would make young Miss Yu despicable. The business of love between a man and a woman was the supreme heavenly Tao in the world. I think young Miss Yu has never tasted it before, right? This is not right. Young Miss Yu is at least 30 years old, isn't she? Yet an old woman like her is still a virgin? This is Lao Ai's sin. With a crafty smile on his face, Lao Ai stared at Yu Qianqian, whose face had turned purple with anger. Shaking his head, he said, "Young Miss Yu is an old spinster who no man wants. Yet she is still a virgin at the age of 30. This is Lao Ai's sin, and this is Lao Ai's mistake. I, Lao Ai, am a man who cherishes flowers the most. Therefore, I will fulfill young Miss Yu's wish. Today, I'll let you enjoy the supreme and wonderful state of bliss." Yu Hada was so infuriated by Lao Ai's extremely shameless words that he roared furiously, "Die, you shameless bastard!" Yu Hada waved both hands, and a large dark cloud came rolling down from the sky. Numerous thunderbolts were seen rolling and rocking amidst the dark cloud, producing deep, muffled rumbles of thunder as they pressed down towards Lao Ai's head. While the dark cloud was still about 1 mile away from Lao Ai's head, silvery thunderbolts as thick as a water tank had already plunged down one after another, aiming straight towards Lao Ai's head. Laughing mockingly, Lao Ai casually pointed his finger up into the sky. Immediately, several dozens of naked girls flew up from the Wheel of Delight, waving their pipa and transforming back into the size of ordinary people. They sang and danced gracefully above Lao Ai's head. Pink, translucent petals kept falling from their bodies, and a dense mist towered up into the sky, blocking off all the thunderbolts that came smashing down from the sky. However, no matter how the thunderbolt struck and smashed, the mist could only roll and roll for a while at most, and was not really broken by the thunderbolts. The Wheel of Delight buzzed faintly, and the moans and moans of countless men and women could be heard coming out from it. Lao Ai's body was shivering as well. Tiny thunderbolts were bursting out from his pores. Although the thunderbolts above him had smashed onto the mist, some of the thunderbolts still managed to penetrate through the void and smash into Lao Ai's body. Surprised, Lao Ai nodded at Yu Hada and said, "You do have some abilities. A pretty boy who does not rely on his face to make a living can actually." Just as he said that, a few thumb-sized thunderbolts suddenly rushed out of Lao Ai's body, and blood sprayed out along with them. Wisps of blood could be seen coming out from the corner of Lao Ai's mouth as well. He forcefully swallowed the blood that had rushed up to his throat and into his stomach. Unknowingly, the thunderbolts had hurt Lao Ai's internal organs. However, Lao Ai had yet to figure out how the thunderbolts had entered his body. Exasperated, Lao Ai gave a furious roar. He rolled his eyes, and the Wheel of Delight behind him suddenly unleashed a vast pinkish divine ray, enveloping the area within 100 miles. Flowers and grasses sprouted out of nowhere on the flat ground, and countless pinkish lotus flowers bloomed gracefully from the bottom of a crystal-clear pool. Tall and straight Bodhi trees sprouted in all directions, and on every single Bodhi tree leaf, there was a beautiful girl who could fly up into the sky and dance gracefully. A strange fragrance was wafting and lingering in the air. Yu Qianqian, who was suddenly drawn into this strange space and inhaled a deep breath of the fragrance, shuddered. All of a sudden, her face turned red, and faint pinkish perspiration was seen dripping down from all over her body. Yu Qianqian was so frightened that she cried out hoarsely, "Huda, save me! This is..." Before Yu Qianqian could finish her words, she had completely lost her mind. Neatly, she tore off her clothes and moaned softly. With a charming smile on her face, she walked towards Lao Ai like a walking corpse. Lao Ai stared complacently at Yu Huda, who had transformed into a thunderbolt and kept darting back and forth in the void. He stretched out his left hand, beckoned at Yu Qianqian and said, "Come, come, come. I'll let you enjoy the boundless happiness today. This is the so-called Pure Land of ultimate bliss." With just a wave of his hand, Yu Qianqian's body suddenly turned blurry, and then she reappeared right next to Lao Ai. With one swift motion, Lao Ai grabbed Yu Qianqian and coiled her legs around his waist, then reached out his hand to untie his belt. Yu Huda was taken aback. "Lao Ai, if you dare to touch even a single hair of hers, I'll definitely beat you to death today," he roared with a stern voice. Lao Ai grabbed Yu Qianqian's left breast with his left hand, grinned hideously and said, "Why would I stop from touching even a single hair of hers? I'm going to touch every part of her body today." A ripping sound rang out. Lao Ai had torn his belt and even pulled off his pants. Yu Huda was taken aback. He roared furiously and revealed himself amidst the purple-blue thunderbolt. The soul of the Quox was hovering amidst the dark clouds above his head, throwing its head back and roaring furiously. Yu Huda performed a grabbing motion with both hands behind his back, and a purple-blue halberd emerged amidst a blinding light. The soul of the Quox hovering above his head transformed into a massive thunderbolt amidst the dark clouds and fused with the halberd amidst a deafening thunderbolt. Yu Huda snorted coldly as he fixed his eyes on Lao Ai, who was sitting on the pinkish lotus throne. Gripping the halberd tightly with both hands, he thrust it towards Lao Ai. The halberd tore through the air, bringing up countless 100 miles long thunderbolts that shot in all directions. Yu Huda's entire body was enveloped in the intense thunderbolts, making him look like a small sun that was emitting endless light and heat. With a blink of his body, he came before Lao Ai, thrusting the halberd forcefully towards Lao Ai's chest. "Die!" Yu Huda cried out lightly. Lao Ai's chest was ripped open, and a hole the size of a human head was pierced through the front and back of his body. A large amount of blood sprayed onto Yu Qianqian's naked body, turning her crimson. Lao Ai howled miserably. He grabbed Yu Qianqian's neck and threw her towards Yu Huda. Yu Huda was taken aback. Instinctively, he loosened his grip and caught Yu Qianqian in his arms. Unexpectedly, when Yu Qianqian was caught in his arms, she immediately transformed into a glinting pinkish skeleton. The pinkish skeleton let out a shrill cry, thrusting its arms and thrusting them forcefully into Yu Huda's body. 4 ripping noises were heard, as 4 holes were pierced through Yu Huda's body, from which blood kept spraying out. His injury was even more serious than Lao Ai's. Suddenly, the pinkish skeleton disintegrated, and all the bone joints squeezed into Yu Huda's body through the 4 holes, attaching themselves to his bones. Yu Huda howled miserably and hoarsely with the skeleton moving through his flesh and blood. However, no matter how he struggled and howled, he could not move his body at all. The wheel of delight slowly expanded, while Lao Ai's body and the pinkish lotus throne under him grew larger at an incredible speed. In just a blink of an eye, Lao Ai had transformed into a huge figure that stood 100,000 feet tall. He stretched both hands out and performed a lotus incantation gesture. The severely wounded Yu Huda was right in his palm, howling and struggling like an ant on a playground that could be crushed to death with just a light palm. "Die now!" Lao Ai stared coldly at Yu Hutta, who was struggling and howling furiously. He clasped both palms together, unleashing a large sheet of strong pinkish light that crushed Yu Hutta into pieces. At the same time, the halberd that Yu Hutta had thrown away just now suddenly flew up, transforming into a lightning bolt that pierced through Lao Ai's ribs and came out from his left shoulder. The attack pierced through Tao Wu's body. Tao Wu screamed miserably, and a large amount of blood gushed out of his 7 apertures. He could no longer maintain this bizarre state. He retracted the wheel of delight and fell heavily to the ground. Madman Shui rushed over with large strides and helped Lao Ai up. Lao Ai coughed out a mouthful of blood and was about to say something when a jade-like beam shot out from the spot where Yu Hutta's fleshly body and soul were crushed, followed by the shadow of a fist. A man's voice resounded through the clouds. "Bastard! Hutta, Etienne, where have you been? I've lost 2 of my sons today, and I'm going to tear you into 1,000 pieces." The fist shadow thrust out. Lao Ai had no time to defend himself, and his right chest was hit by the jade-like fist, piercing through his body. Lao Ai let out a miserable cry, and a pinkish beam shot out from his eyes, shattering the jade-like beam. After that, he leaped onto Yu Qianqian, who was lying on the ground, and cried out sternly, "My disciple, protect me. I need to use her true Yin to heal myself." A miserable howl rang out, and Yu Qianqian suddenly woke up. After that, painful cries, curses, and moans kept ringing out. 15 minutes later, a golden beam suddenly shot up into the sky, amidst which one could vaguely see the silhouette of a lady with a slender figure. Yu Qianqian's extremely resentful voice echoed through the heaven and earth, "Lao Ai, I swear I'll kill you." Following that, Lao Ai's furious roar rang out, "Bitch, you actually have an immortal talisman protecting you? What a pity! That half of your true Yin is wasted." The golden beam moved at an incredible speed, leaving a long trail of flame behind as it flew towards Ji City. At the same time, Princess Zhongle had also returned to Ji City. She was deploying her army, preparing to besiege Yu Academy. Chapter 351. While Myriad Immortals' planet was in an uproar, Wu Qi and his company were hiding in a cave at the bottom of the ocean, looking nervously at the broken ruins around them. Fearing that some heaven immortals might have discovered the cave, Wu Qi recalled all the longbowmen back into the spirit-breeding ring, then killed Yan Xiaoqi and her company. He waited for a very, very long time, but did not find anything else. Only then did he carefully sneak out from the water cave, carefully giving the surroundings a thorough examination. The result left Wu Qi speechless. A giant deep-sea beast with a body of about 100 miles long, shaped like a great white shark but with horns on its head, had accidentally bumped into this coral reef. It brutally crushed the coral reef into pieces, then lay down lazily in a nearby undersea canyon. It was currently sleeping comfortably. The strength possessed by this giant beast was incredibly strong, as even the primordial runes Wu Qi deployed were shattered by its tremendous force. This made Wu Qi speechless for a while. Fortunately, this giant beast was only born with a strong fleshly body and an enormous strength, but it did not possess any sentience, and could not absorb natural energies to cultivate. Otherwise, another incredible demon beast would be born on Shui Yuan planet. After a brief examination and finding that there was no other commotion in the surroundings, and there was no suffocating immortal pressure emanating from a heaven immortal anywhere near or far, Wu Qi and his company sneaked out of the ocean like mice in the night, changing their clothes and disguises stealthily. They crawled out from the pitch-black ocean and returned to the surface of Shui Yuan planet. Although they were surrounded by a vast expanse of white snow and barren grass, the sunlight, the air, the whistling gales, and the snowflakes still made Wu Qi and his company throw their heads back and laugh happily. However, after a few moments of laughter, Wu Qi hastily asked everyone to shut their mouths. Shui Yuan planet was not a very big planet, and they did not want to provoke those few heaven immortals here. With their current strength, they were confident that they could assassinate 1 or 2 heaven immortals through crafty plots. But if they were to fight head-on, any heaven immortal could easily kill all of them. Perhaps, only Wu Qi had a chance to escape alive. After sternly warning everyone to keep a low profile, Wu Qi and the others each stepped on a dim sword light and flew to the nearest city at the slowest speed. It seemed those heaven immortals had given up on hunting Wu Qi and his companions, and peace had returned to Shui Yuan planet. While flying, Wu Qi and his company saw some mortals from Shui Yuan planet working in the snowfield. Apart from the North and South poles, all the other places on Shui Yuan planet were still solid continents under the thick layer of ice and snow. Shui Yuan planet also had crustal activity, volcanoes and lava, and there were hot springs gushing out from the ground. In places where the underground flame activity was stronger, hot springs would burst out from the ground and melt the ice and snow, creating a climate that was similar to spring on other planets in a small area. In Shui Yuan planet, these places were considered as rare blessed lands. Some smaller cities with weaker overall strength would specifically choose such places to build their cities. With the protection from the heat of the underground flame, they would not have to suffer from the harsh wind and snow, and could save a lot of expenses in constructing defensive mechanisms for the cities. After traveling for half a day, Wu Qi and his company saw a small mountain range that stretched over 100 miles in length ahead of them. Wisps of white smoke could be seen rising from it, and a faint smell of sulfur could be smelled from afar. Riding on their flying swords, they flew over and saw a small city, measuring several miles in both width and length, standing quietly in the middle of the green mountain range. Near the city were villages and small towns. The mountain range blocked the wind and snow, and hot springs gushed out from the mountains. The scorching hot water dispelled the bitter cold, while large tracts of farmland were planted on the dark, fertile soil. Thanks to the large number of hot springs in the mountains, this area of several hundred miles in circumference had actually turned into an excellent land of fish and rice. Tender green sprouts could be seen in the farmlands, and fishing boats could be seen sailing back and forth on the lakes. On the mountains that were covered with lush vegetation, there were even large tracts of fruit trees. At this moment, the fruit trees were bearing fruits, and as far as the eyes could see, the world was filled with specks of pale yellow fruits. On Shui Yuan planet, a small city like this could only make a living by selling agricultural products. Because of the geothermal heat, it was impossible for this place to produce the spirit herbs of ice and snow, which were unique to Shui Yuan planet, and there were no energy stone veins of ice and snow. Basically, the few special products that were related to ice and snow on Shui Yuan planet could not be found here. Therefore, the small cultivator clans here could only use a large amount of agricultural products to trade with other major powers and clans for the materials they needed for their cultivation. The grains and fruits they grew were supplied to the other major powers, so that they could feed the mortals under their rule. On the other hand, those major powers would give them a certain amount of energy stones and spirit pills, so that the cultivators from these small clans could cultivate hard. This symbiotic relationship had been going on for several tens of thousands of years on Shui Yuan planet, and if nothing major happened, it would continue for a very long time. Wu Qi and his company flew over one village and small town after another. When the mortals below saw the sword beams whistling over their heads, they knelt on the ground and dared not to raise their heads. Cultivators were supreme beings, and mortals were just mortals. The cultivators of Shui Yuan planet could deal with any mortals at will. They had absolute power over their lives, and no one would care if they did anything they wanted. Therefore, none of these mortals dared to raise their heads, fearing that they might offend Wu Qi and his company, and bring an innocent calamity upon themselves. All the villages, towns, and farmlands within several hundred miles of this small mountain range belonged to the Tian clan, which was a small cultivator clan located in the small city in front of them, Tian City. Tian clan was a small clan whose overall strength was the weakest on Shui Yuan planet. They had a few Jin Dan cultivators, and over a dozen Xiantian cultivators. As for those below them, there was nothing much to say. According to the rules of the world of cultivators, Wu Qi and his company walked slowly into Tian City after they stopped before the East Gate. Their group consisted of 5 nascent divinity cultivators, Yan Qijuan, a nascent soul cultivator, Zhao Kuo, who was hiding his actual cultivation base, and Wu Qi, a monster who did not even know how to classify his overall strength. When they entered the city, Zhao Kuo pulled out a jade slip, drew a few incantation gestures on it, and threw it out. The jade slip transformed into a beam of white light, shot up into the sky, and vanished in an instant. Zhao Kuo said coolly, "I wonder if those people I brought here are dead or not. If they are still alive, let them find a place to hide themselves. If they are all dead, it will be a good explanation." Zhao Kuo gave True Lord Windbreaking and the other two great Zhao's imperial advisors a look. Wu Qi smiled and said, "Don't worry, second brother. If they are all dead, I'll be your witness. It was the Heaven Immortals of Shui Yuan planet who killed those foreign cultivators, and you were just caught in the crossfire. Fortunately, the three imperial advisors came to your rescue, and that's how you managed to escape." The three imperial advisors laughed dryly, and when Zhao Kuo laughed, it looked more like he was crying. However, when he scanned the storage ring with his divine will and saw the three immortal item-grade jade rings hidden inside, he immediately puffed out his chest, and his mood became much better. Before entering the city, Wu Qi was still using a mystic art to sense the surrounding space of Shui Yuan planet. In the sky less than 20 miles above the ground, there was a dense layer of restrictive barrier that isolated the space, preventing the grand universal teleportation formation from functioning. If they wanted to leave Shui Yuan planet, they would have to use a planetary ship to break through this barrier. But when he thought of those heaven immortals on Shui Yuan planet, Wu Qi shook his head dejectedly. Traveling across the starry sky with a planetary ship while being hunted by heaven immortals? Perhaps Jiangqing Zi might have such a long life and good luck, but Wu Qi felt that it was better not to attempt such a dangerous task. He murmured under his breath, "We'll just find a place here and cultivate in peace. Let's see what you can do to us." Tianli City was not a large city, measuring 4 miles in both width and length. Just the mansion of Tian clan alone took up 1/4 of the city. The other districts were separated by 2 broad streets, 2 horizontal and 2 vertical streets. The residents of the city were all reputable merchants in Tianli City, or some in-laws of Tian clan. Apart from that, there were only 2 inns that were not too large in the city, and some brothels and taverns. Cultivators who came from outside to purchase food, fish, meat, fruits, and some other crops would be treated as distinguished guests by Tian clan and would stay in Tian clan's mansions. Therefore, the 2 inns in the city only catered to some traveling merchants and idlers from other cities. Although the conditions were not bad, they were not that good either. Wu Qi and his company found a clean small courtyard in a garden located at the east of the city and settled down. With the hospitality of the innkeeper and the waiter, Wu Qi and his company settled down in the courtyard. After that, Wu Qi went to pay a visit to Xiong Wanling and He Qianxiu. Wu Qi had a very good impression of these 2 old demon kings, who could still protect Yan Qijuan in a desperate situation. Without saying a word, he entered their room and gave each of them 30 blood crystals and soul crystals, which he obtained from the 3 heaven immortals, to each of them. Xiong Wanling and He Qianxiu had devoured countless cultivators, demon beasts, and other living beings, so they were people who knew what was good for them. The blood crystals and soul crystals given by Wu Qi were filled with immortal energy and contained a very magical power. Both of them recognized that they were the essences refined from the flesh, blood, and souls of heaven immortals. Xiong Wanling cried out immediately, "You've refined those 3 mongrels? Do you have a heavenly flame with you?" He Qianxiu gave Xiong Wanling a glare. He put away the blood crystals and soul crystals, cupped his fist and said to Wu Qi, "Duke of Tianyun, if you need anything in the future, I'll definitely do my best to help you. Old bear, why you still standing there like an idiot?" Xiong Wanling smacked his lips and finally came to his senses. He cupped his fist at Wu Qi and said casually, "What the white bird said is right. If you need our help in the future, just tell us. TSK, with these, I'm afraid we'll soon be able to." Xiong Wanling smiled so widely that his eyes narrowed into 2 lines. Wu Qi smiled faintly. Without saying anything, he bid them farewell and left. With these blood crystals and soul pearls, As long as the two old demons could digest them, they would definitely step into peak stage nascent divinity realm. With that, Wu Qi would have two more powerful helpers. Once Wu Qi figured out a way to help them transcend their thunder tribulation, with the help of two heaven immortals who were on friendly terms with him, Wu Qi's forces would be further boosted. After a moment of pondering, Wu Qi summoned True Lord Windbreaking and the other two heaven immortals, and gave each of them 30 soul pearls and blood pearls. The three of them were struck with wild joy, and hastily thanked Wu Qi. Their resentment towards being forcibly subdued by Wu Qi was reduced by 70 to 80%, leaving only a little bit of unwillingness. After all, it was not easy to obtain the blood crystals and soul crystals of heaven immortals. It was extremely difficult to kill a celestial immortal. After everything was done, when Wu Qi was about to find himself a room and quickly improve the cultivation base of 10 innate Jin Dan by swallowing blood crystals and soul crystals, the manager of Garden Inn came to pay him a visit with an old man and two middle-aged men. Before the manager could introduce them, the old man, who possessed the cultivation base of late-stage Jin Dan realm, had already cupped his fist and bowed deeply to Wu Qi. "Senior, this junior is bold enough to visit you, please forgive me," Yi Futian said. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."